It's very good. And I do have to say that, you know, I played a few raids and they do honestly feel a little bit, in some ways, lackluster on a mechanical level compared to strike missions now. Right?
It's weird.
I go back to a raid and I go like, what am I doing? What am I doing in this fight? And you're kind of doing nothing unless you're handling a mechanic. Like, you just hit the boss, right? You're just doing DPS at that point. And that's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. That's fun and all, but strike missions achieve a better usage of the way Guild Wars 2 combat plays out. It makes it's a lot less like a traditional raiding game and more like a Guild Wars 2 raiding game.
Yes.
Right? Which is the key, right? Like, it's trying to get value out of how dynamic and fluid Guild Wars 2 combat is, which is exactly what I think a lot of Guild Wars 2 PvE has been lacking for a long time. We're here, perfectly on time, as all things should be. It's time for some End of Dragons TeaTime gameplay, everyone. And this event
I forgot how messed up my logo is on the stream here.
Yeah? What's wrong with it?
It's
perfect.
Yeah, it's just a weird yellow color.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Make it cover your whole webcam.
Hi, everyone.
It's like a very old version. Yeah, and that's the opener, like how scuffed his logo is. But yeah, it's been a while. The event is so significant that Deroir has felt compelled to return to talk about this.
Yeah.
And, you know, funnily enough, we're just skipping the introductions here. That's actually where I want to start. So End of Dragons is out. And I want to know if you guys were surprised by it. Because I was. I was really surprised by End of Dragons. And
surprised in which way?
I was surprised how good it was.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Same.
That's why I was surprised. Because I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, oh yeah, it's ArenaNet, it's going to be shit. I don't mean in the Doomer sense. I'm like, oh man, you know, they haven't had that long time. They haven't had that long to do it, right? You know, it's going to be scuffed in terms of development, right? It's going to be difficult. They had to cancel the Icebrood saga. What are they going to do, right? They've got all these new things they're trying to add to the game. How are they going to pull all of that off in a short time? But they did, actually. Yeah. They really did, 100%. Actually. And that's the sense in which I'm saying that I was surprised in the best possible way. I mean, you know, my going into End of Dragons, I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be good, right? But the really interesting stuff is going to happen this year, right? You know, like, alliances, DX, exactly right. After, but it was like, oh my god,
expansion. But
yeah. Like,
I agree, actually. Yeah.
It was crazy. It was like super, super intense, right? The strike missions are absolute fire. The world is beautiful. The story is witty and entertaining. Like, if I look at the content side of the expansion, I'm kind of struggling to complain about it, right? Like, I'm having difficulty saying like, oh yeah, that part of it, it was a bit not good. I didn't really enjoy that. What we have is really impressive. So I guess that would be my initial topic, and I want to, I'll ask you guys that. Like, were you surprised about this coming into this? Like, what did you guys think of the expansion overall? I kind of want to get Deroir's take on this first, actually, because I know that you kind of not exactly stopped playing the game, but slightly disengaged, weren't quite as excited about like the future of the game for a period of time, actually. So now that you're back, what do you think?
No, I think you're completely right. I mean, I didn't stop playing the game, but I very much disengaged myself from the community and like all the things that were going on, like the meta game essentially, and just kind of focused on just like playing for fun, being casual. It's been great, honestly. It kind of gave me a lot of the spark to go into End of Dragons. I was really excited to go hard for a little bit again. I don't know if I would color myself surprised by End of Dragons. Yeah, I think it was like a slow roll realization that this was actually really good. Like this is just like I was just having such a good time. It was all fun. It was exactly what I was hoping for. I mean, there's some things that I'm not exactly excited about. Like the elite specializations don't exactly excite me, if at all. Honestly, there's a few here and there that are kind of like but I think that's the biggest surprise to me is like how uninterested I am in many of the new elite specializations. Like I really want to like Spectre, especially. I think that's the one that I really, really want to like, but I don't. Like I really just don't. It doesn't feel great. I don't want to be a support in PvE. It feels kind of all right, but it's also just kind of like, yeah, that's no. Mesmer's great. Virtuoso, it feels kind of good. Feels like the power chrono I've always wanted, and now it's just Virtuoso. Yeah, perfect. But honestly, I think just to take it back to just the expansion itself, like the maps are really well done, the story was really well done. I think overall the Golden Path is borderline. I don't want to call it perfect, but it was like borderline bug free. There's not a whole lot of bugs in the Golden Path. That experience was smooth sailing all the way through. It's only like right after you get out of the Golden Path that you start noticing that, yeah, I mean, there's some polish that's missing here and there, but that's all right. Honestly, I had such a good time with it. I still am having a really good time in Ender Dragons. The maps are fun. The metas are fun. The challenge is great. There's a lot of people coming together finally to do some cool stuff. Yeah. Thumbs up.
Yep.
10 out of 10 experience.
10 out of 10 experience?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, okay. Actually,
Okay.
I don't know if it was really a 10 out of 10 experience.
Oh.
The Tuesday after the launch was probably one of the worst days I've ever had.
Wait,
It
really?
was so bad because I didn't get time off work. So I figured, all right, I'm just going to do a 24-hour marathon.
Oh.
Dude, on Tuesday, I had 7 hours of meetings that I just had to sit there,
Oh.
try not to die after having binged Ender Dragons all night. It was so terrible. I just crashed afterwards. It was bad, yeah. But other than that, it was great. It was fun, yeah. How about you guys? How was your experience with Ender Dragons?
Preston, would you like to go next, or should I?
Oh yeah, I can go next.
Go ahead.
So overall, the expansion, I was expecting, my expectations for the expansion were a bad story, kind of okay elite specs, and then like open world stuff that I would do and whatever, and then good strike missions. That's what I expected going into it. And what we ended up getting, in my opinion, was the best story that Guild Wars 2's ever had, and I really enjoyed it, which was basically a first for me in Guild Wars 2 story. We got really good open world stuff. We got really good strike missions. The strike missions are so hard, people think the hard mode is already out, apparently, but they're really good. And it's just been a masterpiece. Like the music and everything. This is one of the few video game soundtracks, just for example, that I've actually like listened to on Spotify or YouTube outside of like Nintendo or Zelda or something. It's just amazing all around. I was not expecting to like the story, but I really liked it. I'm going to play through it probably 2 or 3 more times. And it's just universally been a positive experience. Everything that I've gone to do in the expansion so far has been really fun. I've really enjoyed playing Harbinger. Some of the other specs I don't really care that much about, and by I guess some of the other ones, I mean the other 8 that aren't Harbinger. Harbinger's good though. And it's been great. It's just been a overwhelmingly positive experience for the most part. Honestly, it hasn't been perfect. There have been some little things here and there. There have been some, I guess, little bugs that have popped up. Like I have a friend who's absolutely dying because the Willbender collection is not completable because one of the items apparently just doesn't exist. So that's stuff like little things like that. But overall, it's been great. I don't think it's possible to give the whole experience less than an 8 out of 10, honestly. Oh, and Untamed, which I actually forgot about Untamed. They should probably do something about that. But
Yeah.
I don't think I think last night. Okay, no, real talk. Last night is the first time I have seen someone play Untamed yet. I was in a strike mission with some friends, and there were 2 players that joined on Untamed, and both of them were from the same guild, and both of them, their names were like X something X, and their inputs were kind of like doing this. And that's the first time that I've seen an Untamed player, and they were playing Untamed twice. And so other than that, yeah,
the combo.
it's been great. It's honestly just been great. It's been incredible.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm about to unleash.
Oh,
I
oh,
love
Wow.
this game. Holy. End of Dragons is so good. I took 2 days off work because that's what I could afford to do. And I played for 30 hours. And it was like, I think I described it as I felt like a kid again. It was just so exciting and so fun. The environments were all top notch. I think the only map that I kind of dislike is actually New Canaan or whatever, because I find that one. I find that there just doesn't feel like there's a lot going on. Like it's presented as a city, but I like wish there was more events. But otherwise, I think they're all really good. I really, really like all the meta events. I failed pretty much each meta event because I was one of the first people to get doing them, right? And people just didn't know how to do them. And I liked that I had no idea what was going on. So just new stuff in general felt good. I really, really enjoy, obviously, the last meta, but I think all the metas are engaging. All of the combat feels different, actually. I think, and Teapot, you had mentioned this before on TeaTime. They made this like one comment in one of the previews where they said, "Oh yeah, and just so you know, veterans, elites, and champions, etc., they're going to get different abilities, and so they're going to get progressively more difficult because they will use different abilities on you." I didn't really think about how that would change my open world gameplay, but it really has. It's not that it's that much more difficult, but it's more engaging. And I think that's the huge thing for me, is that the entirety of End of Dragons is not just run up to it, hit it with a sword, it dies, right? It's like, hey, this thing is like moving around. It's reflecting some of my attacks and stuff. I can't just win by default. You just engage with it a little bit more, and that bled into the story. I've been extremely critical of the story being boring. You just go in and nothing happens. It just does it for you. I've been really critical of the story, to be fair, and maybe at times I was slightly unfair to the story. End of Dragon's story is the best story Guild Wars 2 has ever made. It is fun, witty, engaging, exciting, and frankly, I wanted to keep playing it. As I was going, I think a lot of times throughout Guild Wars 2's history, I've been like, oh, I just got to get through the story so I can do the next thing or get this new reward track or whatever. But this time I was like, I want to know what happens next. Like, where are we going? What are we doing? What are they going to throw at me now? And as I was going through the story and I got to the end, I just kind of sat back and I had this moment where I was like, that was thoroughly enjoyable. Like that was really good. They had me laughing out loud. They had me like, oh, like what's going to happen here? And the story was like a 9.5, 10 out of 10 for me. Extremely good. Extremely good. So just to wrap it up, End of Dragons for me delivers in every capacity because it's engaging at every level. It's not just just run through and everything dies to you in the story. They have engaging parts. They provide accessibility to players that aren't interested necessarily in the combat or engaging. They like give you Orion God power and you just like blow through the boss. And I think that's totally fair because some people do just want to hear what the story is going to be like. And so I really enjoyed that they catered to different kinds of players, that they didn't make it too difficult for players. But they did make it so that players that really engage with the combat, they weren't bored by it. You had to move around and do things. And then the strike missions are fantastic. Like I'm super excited to see what they do with CM because for once we have end game content that's forcing you to move around a lot, and I liked that. I think there's times when you need to perhaps split up. They have that a little bit in Fractals, but the strikes are fantastic for that. You're moving around. You have the number mechanic where people have to move off the group. There's individual responsibility. I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. This is the best experience Guild Wars 2 has ever delivered, hands down.
Ooh,
Tough act to follow.
that is tough to follow. That is big. Yeah, and I think that just to kind of round out that idea and echo it a little bit. To me, End of Dragons is the first content that we've seen where ArenaNet is really trying to realize the full potential of their in-game systems, I think, and combining that with the world itself, right? You look at the strike missions and, we've always known that, Guild Wars 2 has this amazing combat system. Wow, the combat is so good. What do you do in a lot of content in Guild Wars 2 with this amazing combat system. You stand behind a boss and hit your abilities in order, right? That's how a lot of instance content plays out. Now that's not even the case in open world sometimes, right? You're thinking about using your abilities because the mobs are reflecting you, they're evading you, they're moving, so you have to follow them, right? You know, you have to push an orb around, right? You're going to have to actively dodge attacks. Mobility is relevant as well. You know, it's a lot more dynamic. The experience is so much more dynamic than what we've seen before. It's incredible, right? You know, they've blended all of this together and realized the full potential of their game, right? It really feels, to me, Ender Dragons, it feels like what Guild Wars 2 always should have been to an extent, right? Like this is what the devs had in mind when they originally made the game. And now they've been able to realize that by using all of the kind of the lessons and new things that they've learned while developing the game for 10 years. I've got to say, it's pretty remarkable. I do say I am very, very impressed with what ArenaNet has done. And look, okay, I don't want to be like the sound of doom, right, in the background here. It's getting too positive, guys. I've got to at least dampen it a little bit here.
There are little things that are kind of.
Oh yeah, we're only starting out positive so that we can go harder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're luring people in. It was like, oh wow, they're so positive. Then we just start slamming it. Yeah, just start roasting the game. Yeah, but I think the real test now is what's going to happen next, right? You know, expansion, good, great, okay. Now we need to see this happen again and again and again down the line, right? What's the next step? What's going to be that next stage? Which hopefully we'll find out a little bit more about relatively soon. But yeah, like that to me is going to be the true proof of what we're saying here. And if our positivity is going to be fully validated, is can they do this again? Right? Are we going to be having this same podcast in 3 months from now? Because that is the final piece of the puzzle. That we know that ArenaNet can make great content. They've done it in the past, right? And they've done it again here. But can they keep doing it? Because that is where ArenaNet have typically had their problems, is consistency. It tends to all crumble to dust and fizzle away, a few months down the line. So let's see if they can avoid doing that this time around.
I actually had a bit of a weird feeling right at the end of the story. Because like you get to the end of the story, obviously, and we're going full spoilers here, obviously, right?
Of course. Oh yeah. Oh, just do it. Just do it.
Timey dies.
Yes. Bye. No, but like I kind of found myself just feeling like, okay, this really was a really good ending to this whole saga of the dragons. Like I felt like, okay, I can walk away right now, and I would have experienced the end of the story of Guild Wars 2. It felt very, very conclusive. And so for a second there, I kind of walked around just my apartment just feeling like, okay, so that was it, I guess. And then I just kind of got back into it, started doing the achievements and forgot about that feeling. But it kind of stuck with me for a little while. That feeling of, okay, yeah, this could be the end again. I know we've said this before, but like story-wise, this definitely feels like they could just move on here to something else, and I wouldn't fault them for it. Yeah,
I think that's the
10
intention.
years. 10 years is a long time doing a story like this in an MMO and actually having a positive, successful conclusion. Like mega kudos to ArenaNet for doing that. Even obviously if they continue, which I expect them to do, but yeah, it did kind of feel like that. Was that the only one that had that feeling, or is that?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's been 10 years of the same story. 2 weeks of the story out of those 10 years has been good, and I think it's the perfect time for them to move on to the next chapter of Guild Wars 2 storytelling. So I think this is the perfect time to do it. It's like you've done everything right. Like, let's go ahead and let's just move on from it and pretend that like it was all that good, and let's just keep the last memories that we've had, and it's all been that good. Let's get all the good feelings and let's move on and let's do something good. Going forward, something new, and leave Timey out of it this time, please God.
Yeah.
I definitely I do agree with you there, Deroir. It was very, this is the end, right? This is finished, but not in the sense that the game has ended. I think they was like, this is dragons wrapped up, done, right? Okay, maybe Orien's going to flutter around a little bit more. It was very clear that they were wrapping that up, but I think they also introduced a lot of other kind of story concepts that they're kind of, they're teasing you a little bit, right? You have all these new characters now. We have all these new conflicts to explore in the continent. I'm sure they'll be able to come up with something else as well. I think there's still plenty to explore. I mean, the map is huge now. Have you seen that world map? It's huge.
I mean, yeah.
We could go everywhere.
I'm not saying that the world is devoid of possibilities at all. Like there's so many potential things that they could do, and they've had this potential the whole time. But I'm just saying that like the broader picture of like where the story might go, like it from here on, it would take a couple of years now to like establish a new thing that we're actually like a new big goal that the hero commander is going for, right? Otherwise it's going to feel very like we're just going on side quests for the next long while.
I think de-escalation is almost the intent, actually. I think we might see a little bit more side quest stuff.
I'm totally cool with that.
But because I think that, I mean, you can look at what I think, look, it's hip, it's trendy, right, to shit on WoW. The latest ending to the WoW expansion was I don't even play the game, and I know it was one of the worst possible things they could have done. It was shit. It was terrible. Okay, it was awful. Right? The entire plot line is, oh, you know that villain from like 5 years ago? It was actually the pawn of this villain, and that villain was actually the pawn of this villain. It was awful. It was terrible, right? And then the final reveal of the WoW expansion is, in fact, that the guy controlling everything was himself a pawn for the setup for the next expansion, right? Inconceivably bad. So I think it's really hard to wrap something like, this really, really long storyline up. And Guild Wars 2 did this unbelievably effectively, I think. My only criticism is they didn't kill enough people, right? Okay, you've got to, look, we got to get rid of some of these characters, right? Like, what, why is Braham alive? Okay, like, why is Kaith still alive? I don't know. Why is anyone still alive? Just kill them all, right?
Clean slate.
Clean slate. You can't have all of the good guys survive. Right? I feel like that's well established. And we did have, I guess there was one pretty sad death, but not from like the main cast, right? It was kind of like a bonus cast member. Mytrin, let's just go there, guys. Mytrin,
full spoilers.
Full spoilers. She joined our team. She was pretty cool, pretty interesting character. Boom, dead. Like, instantly killed immediately, right? And yeah, that stuff can feel pretty early, but it's because you don't actually have that much time. If you think about it, the story of End of Dragons is like 8 to 10 hours, I want to say, approximately. So you haven't got that much time to do all of this. And, on this topic of it felt like a kind of complete experience, I think this is something that ArenaNet have wanted to do for a while, is to kind of create that. I think that's why we see title screen, End of Dragons, right at the start of the expansion. You see credits right at the end, right? It's because I think they want to move towards this more self-contained experience. And we saw this in the story too. They almost give us a little mini season 1 recap, right? They introduce Scarlet back into the story and say, oh yeah, it's the 8th Blades. Oh yeah, it's my Trinity. Oh, hey, you guys remember what happened there? You remember all that bad stuff you did? Yeah, I remember that. Don't you remember that player character? It was almost like they wanted to make End of Dragons make sense, even if you hadn't played the game. So if you just played End of Dragons, it's start to finish. That's a wholesome, satisfying experience, which, to be honest, can you really say that for other expansions? Because if you play Path of Fire, for example, enter, you're on an airship with characters you have no idea who they are, completely decontextualized. And what's the end? You beat Balthazar, but it immediately teases you with the actual kind of main villain, right? Which is Kralkatorrik. That's kind of the thing that you encounter right at the end. So there's no actual satisfying ending to that, really. You beat the boss, Kralkatorrik shows up, eats all the magic. He's like, oh yeah, you better come and get me, right? So I get that they want to draw you onto the next thing, but I think with End of Dragons and maybe with future content, this is something that they want to lean into, because I do think this has been a problem that the game has had story-wise for a very long time, is that the stories aren't self-contained. It's like coming into a TV show like 7 seasons in, right? You just have no idea what's going on. And I think MMOs in general struggle with this a lot. So I think ArenaNet want to address that, try to make it a bit better.
But I think because I'm not opposed to it just being self-contained story updates that we get and like side quest feelings. But I think one of the fears that I might have is that like this is right after our Marvel's Endgame finale. We beat Thanos, and the rest of the Marvel lineup that comes after does ring a bit hollow, I guess, because it's like they don't have that same that same feeling of like building towards something bigger. I mean, obviously it's going to happen eventually, but they do feel slightly disconnected from the bigger picture, I guess. And I'm just kind of afraid that some of these side quests in Guild Wars 2 might feel, I don't know, too disconnected, too meaningless, but still fun. I don't know. I guess it's just thinking in lore wise, because the game is just, if they keep this quality up, the lore is, or the story is not really going to matter, as long as they give great content, which they've proved that they are really working towards that. So maybe my fears are irrelevant, but yeah, I just wanted to voice that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Like, I think it's one of the really big problems that a lot of games, and honestly even movies have, like certainly in Marvel, right? It's that you have to keep escalating. You've got, everything you do has got to be what you just did plus one. Because if you don't, people are going to go, well, that was shit, wasn't it? He was lame. Okay, that was a terrible villain, right? He was weak, pathetic. So it is hard, and I think that I don't doubt that they'll probably try and come up with some kind of overarching story, right? Like if it's going to be, I don't know, like who knows what they could come with? They come up with anything, right? It could be something to do with the Empire of Cantha. It could be the conflict between all these different factions there as well. I'm sure they could do something, right? And we kind of had a little bit of a taste of this with the Icebrood Saga, with I guess like a slightly more toned down plot with this idea of the Char Civil War, because that wasn't like the main thrust of the story, right? The main thrust was Jormag, but you had this other subplot going on. So I think there's some potential that they could still do this, but I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. It's probably not going to be quite as grand as there are giant dragons. And if we don't stop them, the entire universe is going to explode and turn into void. They really ramped it up, right, for the ending of this one.
I mean, sorry, Preston, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I don't like the high stakes. Like, it's the fate of everything hangs in the balance. I'm so sick of that in everything that I see. That's been every piece of media in the past 150 years. I'm really tired of it. I want to see stuff like, we're going to the Wizard's Tower. This has been a big mystery since Guild Wars 1. Everybody go watch the Wood and Potatoes videos. And here we go. We're going to finally unravel it. It's going to take 3 episodes. Boom, Wizard's Tower. And we get a new strike mission. And it's the Wizard in the Wizard's Tower. That's the stuff that I want to see going forward. This huge, big fate of the world shit is really getting old with me. Personally, I think Guild Wars 2 has had way too much of it. Also, I have to say this because I feel like apparently this is a hot take, and I'm really confused as to why this is going to be a hot take. Apparently, a lot of people really like Anka's voice acting. Grimjack said it was the best voice acting in all of Guild Wars 2. I literally think Anka's voice acting was worse than Todd Howard's in Oblivion. Like, it's I've never hated I've never hated a character's voice that much. Seriously, it was
Todd
fucking
or
hell.
Anka?
No, Anka's voice. Like, I hated that voice acting so much. But maybe that's a hot take. Maybe I'm literally the only one that thinks that. I just really didn't like it. It didn't sound like it fit with an Azura at all. It didn't sound like a rat voice.
Maybe I'll have to listen to it again, because it really didn't stick out to me as being bad at all. I kind of liked it. Or maybe I just like the character, I guess, and I'm confusing the two.
I thought the character was fine. I just thought the voice did not fit with the character whatsoever.
Yeah, it wasn't quite Azura-like. Yeah, I think I noticed that as well. It wasn't quite there in line with how Azura typically sound. I mean, the character was pretty interesting, so it's fine, I guess.
But in terms of some of the,
it's fine. She's dead now. It's okay. She's dead now, Brazil.
Yeah. Never gone back.
She can't hurt me anymore.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of, and I think one of the reasons why I'm thinking in the lines of like the side quest feeling is some of the plotline, like story threads that they're kind of pushing at the end of Dragons through some of the achievements and stuff like that. They don't really seem all that cool or super interesting, and maybe I'm just not catching on to it. But it's like, oh yeah, are we gonna go find all the salt spray dragons around Cantha? Or are we going to go more into the deep ocean? That one's kind of interesting. And then like it's the Empire. I don't know. It's maybe I just need more details before I get excited about it. But who knows?
Yeah,
The
it
Salt
certainly
Spray
is a big
Dragon
unknown.
chase
It's a
is
big
kind of
unknown.
weird to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah? Why is that a bit weird?
Because it just feels so out of left field. It's like Ender Dragons, and then, oh yeah, by the way, there are lost Salt Spray Dragons all over the place. Go and find this one, and then maybe later on, wink, wink, there will be more. And it was just kind of like, I thought we were done with the dragons now. And I don't know. Yeah.
Do you want to go
I
and
just think it's
hunt them all down?
exciting that it's just exciting that there's something new coming next, right? Like that. Maybe that seems really vague, but now there's so much opportunity. There's so many places that they could go. I mean, we already kind of briefly touched. The map has expanded significantly. I'm looking at all these little nooks and crannies on the map and thinking, like, what could they do there? There's just there's so much space for them to expand the story into something completely new and different. The opportunity is now, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. They can do anything they want. Very exciting.
Wizard's Tower.
And I think
Tower would be good.
I think, well, I don't know, it's a little bit, a little bit hopium, I guess, to say this, but I was really impressed by what the writers did with the story this time around. It's, I don't know, this might be a little bit of a cliched thing to say, but it really feels like, the writing style matured a lot. During this, it was a lot less kind of like, oh, let's go on a magical, jolly, whimsical adventure. It was a bit more serious, a bit more mature, right? It wasn't just, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. A lot of Guild Wars 2 stories felt like a bit like a fucking pantomime to me, right? Sorry, Guild Wars 2, right? Outside of the raids and stuff like that, it's been, all right, okay, fine, whatever. But this was, it had some interesting twists and turns. It had some darker elements to it as well, right? A lot more mature theming and mature writing. So I'm very confident that they'll be able to make compelling stories out of this as well. I think they have the power to do it. Yeah, exactly. The NPCs, they even say naughty words. Like,
yeah,
that's like how you know it's gritty.
3
okay?
times.
Yeah. Ooh.
I think there was one. I don't know. This is a bit of a side note, but I think there was like there's an interview from like years back of one of the writers, I forget who, that said they had one F-bomb that they could drop throughout the whole game to still keep their rating, like the PG-13 or whatever rating it is. And I guess they just kind of blew it all. They blew the whole budget here.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought that was great. That was great. You still got the key.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was fun. The story was fun. And it was engaging, right?
When do you
now we've come full circle.
When do you think we're gonna hear more? I know we haven't talked obviously about Ender Dragons fully, but just to stay on the thread of like the future for a second longer, when do you guys think that maybe when do you think that we will hear more, and when do you think we should hear more? I think there's a difference here, because I'm thoroughly of the opinion that they should come out saying really fast, like pretty quickly, that this is our plan for the year. Not in any like very concrete terms, but just like we are working to be putting out something roadmap-ish soon.
I think end of the month.
Yeah, I was going to say end of the month. Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't expect them to do anything right away, and only because they're communicating quite significantly about different bugs and patches and things that they're working on. I wouldn't expect them to be like, yeah, we're trying to fix everything that you're telling us, and then we're also going to give you this other. I think that's too much work, too many balls to juggle in the air. I think they'll probably just come out with something like April 1st. That's not April Fool's Day, like April 2nd maybe.
I bet they do it April 1st just to spite all of the haters.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I want to comment on one of the things that I think made the story really, really solid, and I alluded to this, is that it appealed to multiple kinds of players, right? I think for a lot of time, at least for myself, I don't know if anyone else has felt this way, but I've looked at the story as something that, there's the story players. They're just trying to, accommodate this very specific kind of person who enjoys this. And I never felt like I fell into that camp. But there's something different about EOD, and I don't even know that I could quite explain it, that it feels like it appeals to a much wider audience. And I think part of that is because the story is more engaging. There's different puzzles, and because there's more gameplay associated with it. Not that it's jam packed with gameplay, but it has enough to where it kept me, a gameplay focused player, engaged. Does anybody else have like a comment about that? I just felt like they just opened the door for the story to be more interesting for a wider player base.
I'd say that's almost one of the fundamentals that they tried to do with EOD.
Yeah.
It is to try and make all of the content work for everyone. It's funny. This kind of leans into another topic that came up recently. But a lot of the game has always been, right, this is for this group of players. This is for this group of players. This is for this group of players. Never talk to each other. Only do your thing. If you like this, you only play this. If you like this, you only play this. Also, Deroir's gone. And now I'm Deroir. Nice. And I think this has been an issue, right? Because it essentially means that everyone gets less content, right? Because you have to wait for your turn, right? You have to wait your turn to get your piece of content. But that hasn't happened with Ender Dragons, certainly from the PvE perspective anyway. They very clearly tried to make everything work for everyone and be an enjoyable experience for everyone in the game, right? Like the story, not only do you have the story mode, and a little bit more of a gameplay focus, they made sure that all players will be comfortable beating the bosses by adding the Giga Aurene energy. They also then said, if you want something a little bit more, well, you can repeat some of these same story fights by reusing assets and putting it in the strike missions. They made the open world, again, not necessarily harder. And this is honestly a topic for an entire other tea time. You were really right when you said this, Sneb, that it's not harder. It's just more engaging, right? A lot of the time, with probably one exception, but maybe more on that later, right? In general, I'll say the open world's not exactly more difficult as such, right? The enemies are approximately the same strength, but they just have things that make you interact a little bit more. They have abilities that you need to look at and respond to, right? There's loads of different enemies. You don't just like mow them all down, right? Like you actually have to fight against them, right? They're going to actually try and fight you instead of just kind of like, we're here to make you feel like you're doing something, but you're really not, right? It's like, they actually try and do something. And the meta events definitely show that. The story shows that. The strike mission shows that. Yeah, I think this is a really big thing. It's good.
It was huge for me. I think that's why I enjoyed the content so thoroughly. It's because this sounds like really like emotional or something, but I felt seen. I felt like, I like this kind of content, and they heard me, right? They heard me. They made content that somebody like me would enjoy, but that doesn't take away necessarily, maybe except for one exception, from the general player base, right? And I just thought that was so cool. And then even with something like strikes, right? The strikes, I think this is actually a huge debate potentially, but the strikes don't have a time limit. And because they don't have a time limit, that means that literally like anybody that learns to do the mechanics and executes the mechanics well can do the strikes. They still have a certain level of difficulty. There's still certainly a barrier to entry because it's quote unquote end game content, right? But by removing that, it allows players to play very, very defensively and still eventually win. Now, it's kind of torturous probably to have like an hour-long strike, but the reality is this opens the door for a lot of players, I would think. I would think it makes it easier to get into. Now, the issue is that do they even know how to play a little bit cozier, or do they know how to use builds that are super defensive to their advantage? And the answer is probably not. But I think that this is just like a portal into the future, right? How they're trying to accommodate more and more folks for this kind of content.
Not to get too off topic, because I want to kind of talk to go back to what Deroir was talking about with, like communication in the future. But that was the thing that actually really surprised me about the strikes. They're quite hard.
I was shocked too.
They're quite hard actually, right? Compared to what I was expecting. I expected them to be very easy, right? And I'm not saying that's bad. That's good, right? So that people can actually get in there and really access this kind of entry level end game PvE. But the first two, yeah, sure, they're not super crazy, right? They really aren't that hard. But the second two, like Kaineng Overlook and Harvest Temple especially, people are going to have problems with those, right? Like if you haven't experienced that, you're going to have problems. which was surprising to me because I was expecting the normal mode to be very straightforward, right? More like what we saw with Ice Brood Saga, and then the challenge about okay, now we're actually in business, like now we're cooking with gas, right? This is going to be the real content, the real extreme stuff. But that's not the case. They're like, you know what? You're gonna have to learn. You have to respect the mechanics if you want to beat this content. No messing around.
I'm not entirely sure if this is defined as a hot take, I guess, but I actually think they hit the nail on the head with the strikes. Because you essentially have story mode, like you just go through the story and you see the story for anyone that just wants the story, and then you have something that is essentially medium level quality, medium level raid tier quality now with some of the strikes, and then you get the CM, which is supposed to be around raid level difficulty. You have this whole ramp up for anyone that really wants to see or experience the content at any difficulty level. And I think if they keep going with this model, I think they have the perfect formula. Honestly, it's what everyone's kind of been screaming for the whole time. It's like you get the people that are wanting story mode or easy mode or whatever that they're asking for. You get the people that are interested in harder challenges, and you get them at a potentially higher cadence than beforehand because they're reusing a lot of assets. It's a win all around, and I think this is the future of Guild Wars 2 and how it could actually be great.
Yeah, and then as you said, it's just resource allocation, right? Now they can serve multiple populations.
Yeah.
Without doing a ton of extra work. They don't have to build out a full new raid wing because they have all of these assets they've already taken from the story. It's actually so smart, and I'm glad that they've decided to go this route.
As much as I love that raids have their own contained stories and all these things, I think this is better for the larger community.
It's better for the game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I have a lot of stuff. I don't know if we really want to get into strikes right now fully, but I have a lot that I could say about them. But overall, I think there's some stuff that is honestly a little bit overtuned about a few of them. But I think for the most part, I think that they're positioned pretty perfectly in terms of difficulty. And I've been in a wide variety of groups, and I've done strike missions with a lot of different people and pugs and with good guilds and stuff, and it's been there's been a very large difference in the level of enjoyment depending on like who you play it with and like what you do, and the willingness of the commander to like engage and do different things and set up squads and whatever. But overall it's been a really positive experience. I think they did a good job. I would also probably throw it out there that with raids, you can just, with Wing 1 specifically, Veil Guardian and Gorseval, you can just skip and avoid all the mechanics that punish you. And you can't really, it doesn't seem that you can really do that in the new strikes. I think in some ways, these are probably harder than some of the raids that are out there. But I think they're really good. I think the CMs are honestly going to be difficult. I think they're going to be really hard. I think they'll probably be harder than a lot of the raids.
I think that's probably true because in the same way, no, I think it should. I think that's good. I mean, I think the CMs are too easy. So yeah, I completely think that's correct. In the same way that and this is another reason why I'm so excited about Ender Dragons, because we don't only see a maturation in the story writing, we also see it in the design of the game as well, right? Like Ender Dragons is the expansion where they actually fixed all of the shit that we've been complaining about, or at least a lot of it, right? We've been complaining about for years and years and years. The game is a lot better designed. A lot of the content, the strike missions are a lot better designed than even a lot of raids, right? Like we've always said that, oh yeah, raids are really dumb sometimes because you stand behind the boss, you burst it down while like 3 people do mechanics. Well, they're actively going to kind of force a lot more players to be involved in handling a lot of the mechanics. Like they're very well designed. They're a step up in design. Are they quite as hard as some raids? Nah, not really. Sure. Raids typically are a bit more strict sometimes. they have in rage timers and so on, right? And but hey, they actually take a long time. Some of those strikes are long, right? Okay, Kaineng and Harvest Temple, they're pretty meaty encounters when you get right down to it, right? They've got a lot of health on them, which is again exactly what we've been asking for a very long time, is to have a much more robust endgame PvE design. Which it's great. It's very, very good stuff. It's fantastic. And it's why I completely agree with you guys, right? This is the future of the game, right? Just want to point this out. Okay, I'm going to say this as often as I can. When the first strike mission came out, the first one,
was that Freyr of Jormag?
Yeah, no, Shiver Peak Pass.
Shiver Peak Pass, yeah.
I said that strike missions were the future, and boom, I was right. Only took 3 years, but there it is. We made it. We did it.
Well,
hell yeah.
Should we just talk about strike missions now?
Maybe it's time. We'll come back to the future of the game and communication of this. We're fully sidetracked now. Okay, we've trampled over Deroir's beautiful segue, and it's time to embrace that.
Don't worry, I'll bring it back later.
About the strike missions and about the no-win rage timer and playing safely, I've been in groups of people, like anytime I'll just camp the LFG and snipe it. Anytime there's a group that says Kining Overlook for Turtle or something like that, I'll immediately join it. And I'll go play on Heal Scourge or something just to try and help people, complete it. And just to play a build that, I can contribute on, just to see the chaos and see what happens. And I've been in groups where the commander will just leave everyone in the same subgroup. Everyone's just playing some random build. I had a build where we had a rifle Deadeye that camped out across the platform on Kining Overlook and just kneeled with rifle and auto attacked the entire time. And whenever someone would get fixated by the Mesmer boss, they would run around in the room, they would run around in a circle, and everyone would chase, and the bosses would overlap. Everyone would get one shot by Minister Lee every single time, and I would transfusion them and res them. And people would grief each other, people would stack circle AoEs on top of each other, constantly blow each other up. And the people that tried to individually play safely, you're probably not going to get the fucking turtle. Like if there are 9 people that just go into it trying to individually do the strike mission with 9 other people around you, it's not going to be successful. Like there are too many mechanics. They stack up. The bosses, I saw the enforcer or whatever that summons the spirits in Kining Overlook. It summons spirits in multiple faces that do different things. I didn't know that happened because the previous times that I saw it, you just out DPS it and it dies, but it has 2 different spirit attacks, and there's shit like that. But if you go in with a group on Kining Overlook that has high DPS, you just kind of there are different ways that you can do it. You can focus down the ritualists. You can split off into subgroups. You have people tank, and then you just go boop, boop, boop. One, you can kill 2 bosses on top of each other. It's kind of cool that there seem to be multiple ways to do it, and one's not necessarily better than the others. You can focus down the Mechanist with 10 people. You can split up on the Sniper. And you can play different comps too. And the Mechanist does stuff. If you try to stack in melee range, there are different times where it literally blows you out of the way. It has this attack that blows you off of its hitbox and sends you around the arena. And if you stack up while the sniper's up shooting, it'll pop 3 different people, 4 different people. And so it's really cool. It gets you to spread out. And another thing is that people are learning that DPS uptime is also about moving and doing DPS. You have to track the bosses. You have to get to and from the boss, go out, come back in. There's stuff like that that's really cool. I think on the My Trend Strike, the CC bar on the Elite and the health on the other Elite are overtuned, especially the CC bar. It just shouldn't require that much on the Elite and the split phase. But there's some cool gimmicky mechanics too, like a laser beam where you go in the circles. People get griefed by that every single time. With the 3 circles that spin around and it one-shots you. That's fun. It's just they're just, it's been fun. I go into it with groups of people that are Omega Raiders, and we just one-shot it, and it's no problem, and it's fun. And you go in with 9 other people that don't know what they're doing, and it's fun because you get to see oh wow, what the fuck is happening here? It's just been it's awesome. It's really cool. It's a good experience. I like it.
The strike missions, the strike missions are fire. That is true. They are very good.
I did wing 1 with Sneb and Isa yesterday, and holy shit, I was wow, I don't ever want to do Wing 1 again because I have to do Spirit Run. After Gorseval, I have to kill all the bandits. All of this shit. The worst part of raids is all of the random downtime where you kill the boss and it's like, all right, now we have to get to the other boss. And 3 people are like, oh, I gotta go get a coffee. Oh, I gotta go piss. Oh, my grandma's dying and I gotta go to the funeral. Oops. And then they just leave and you're 6-manning or 7-manning the pre-event that everyone hates. It just takes longer. Like, they got rid of all that in the strikes. It's you just go in and you just do the boss. It's the best part. It's awesome.
I mean, that's quite nice.
I mean, I don't disagree. It's great. I love the passion.
I like the energy here. I think there's something to be said for raids having their own full environment, I think, right? And that storyline element. And I would like to see raids in the game again at some point, but again, properly designed, right? Such that we have difficulty settings so that it would be accessible to all players, right? In the same way that strikes hopefully are a lot more accessible now. So I think there is something to be said for that. But yeah, sure, like strikes are nice, right? They're super quick fire, just get in there and blast them, right? It's very good. And I do have to say that, I've played a few raids and they do honestly feel a little bit, in some ways, lackluster on a mechanical level compared to strike missions now, right?
It's weird.
I go back to a raid and I go like, what am I doing? What am I doing in this fight? And you're kind of doing nothing unless you're handling a mechanic. Like, you just hit the boss, right? You're just doing DPS at that point. And that's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. That's fun and all, but strike missions achieve a better usage of the way Guild Wars 2 combat plays out. It makes it's a lot less like a traditional raiding game and more like a Guild Wars 2 raiding game.
Yes.
Right? Which is the key, right? Like, it's trying to get value out of how dynamic and fluid Guild Wars 2 combat is, which is exactly what I think a lot of Guild Wars 2 PvE has been lacking for a long time.
I completely agree.
And I think it's a really good point that you brought up about the kind of mechanical complexity and the strategy of it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really cool that there's loads of different ways you could do it. There's loads of different ways you could approach this. Whereas with raids, it tends to be a little more, okay, right, you've got to do this. And there's obviously a lot of really interesting theory craft and strategy that goes into high level play. But I think, you see a lot of that in strike missions all the time now. I think there's going to be loads of different ways that players might end up approaching these different strike missions. And that's really, really, really cool. They've got a lot to them. There's a lot of depth, a lot of thinking and challenge that's going to inspire the player to come up with their own solutions to different mechanics, which I think is really cool.
I think overall, ArenaNet just seems to have gotten better at building their encounters, and it shows. I mean, yeah. Side note, but yeah.
I'm worried to give the strikes a 10 out of 10 because it feels like giving anything a perfect score is kind of like being a fanboy almost.
Yeah.
But I think I would give them a 9. I mean, they're good. Harvest Temple, like, I think one of the best experiences I've had in the expansion was, you're trained all through Harvest Temple. Okay, hit the ball, hit the ball, hit the ball. And then when the last ball spawns, you're like, oh, okay, there's no white circle. I guess we just hit it out of bounds. And everyone swarms on it.
It's actually true.
Blasts it to the side of the arena as fast as possible. And then everyone just full dies. It's just oh, yeah.
You know what I like most about the strikes? There are moments in the strikes where you're like, all right, everybody, like, this could end us if we don't fix this, right? Like there's those moments of like slight panic, right? Even on the first strike where there's like the circle and you're like, wait, what's going on? Like Deaxon and I did this. I think we both went in blind and I just jumped in his group like launch day. And I was like, what's going on? Why are there circles? Right. And I got in the circle. I'm like, are we supposed to evenly be in the circles? And then like we got destroyed by the we died. We both died because we're in the wrong circle. And so there's this like slight moment of panic where you have to move in the right spot. You see that same thing in the next strike where, it's trying to suck you into the circle, right? You're like panic. Like if I get sucked in the circle, bad consequence is going to happen, right? And then you see the same thing with the numbers. You're like, oh my gosh, somebody has the number and they're on the group. Move off the group, move off the group, move off the group. Did the same thing in the last one with the ball, right? stop hitting the ball, stop hitting the ball, like don't hit it out of bounds, quick, something's getting to the ball. Like those moments make instance content so fun, right? Those, because then it gives you opportunity for clutch moments where somebody like just saves it. Like the other day, somebody went in and they like immobed the little slug thing that tries to get to the ball, right? Just in time. Or we all moved to the other side of the ball so that we could push it from going right. Like every single person, the ball's like flying to the edge and every person moves on the other side and then you just like, it's like Dragon Ball Z, you're like holding the Kamehameha, right? Like it's so good. It's so fun to have moments where they're make or break and that the whole team is kind of in on it.
Yeah, rather than just one person, right? Which is
exactly.
Which is what has happened a lot with raids. It's like, oh, someone failed green, right? Oh, the kiter died, right? Oh, the tank completely fucked it, right? Yeah, it's really good, and also I think that this makes the strikes inherently easier to pick up, right? Because it's not, oh, you're going to do this role, then only you do this. Exactly, you are going to be handling this mechanic. Right. Having this a bit more distributed, I think makes them a lot more approachable and less intimidating in a lot of ways. And they were very clever about this because you talked about the enrage, right, Sneb? But did you notice that you could do all of them without a healer? That was really clever, I think. Yeah. They deliberately made it so that as long as you don't fuck up the mechanics, you don't actually need that much healing, right? Just your kind of generic people using their support skills, using their own heal skill, that'll get you through them, to be honest with you. Like maybe Harvest Temple can it's a little more intense damage-wise, but the first three, you don't honestly, if you do the mechanics right, you don't need to heal, actually, whatsoever. I thought that was a really clever thing to try and do because it really shifts it away from like, oh, you need this comp to win, over to you need to understand the fight, how to win.
Well, it goes back to the roots of Guild Wars 2. Wasn't the whole idea with Guild Wars 2 to be like, play how you want, right? And in effect, like there still is a right way to play, right? Like you still want to provide boons, but you can do that in so many different ways now. You don't have to have a druid, whereas before it was like almost mandated that you had a druid, right? Like everybody, like if you didn't have a druid, like people didn't even know how to do the mechanics. So I think they actually validated this by also balancing professions around that. Do you agree with that? Like when they changed a lot of things from 10 to 5, they were saying, all right, we want people to spread the responsibility around and we want people to also engage with mechanics. Now it's not just the druid, right? That's typically how people didn't know how to do mechanics because they never had to. They're like, I don't play a druid, so I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think they have deliberately done that. And I think you see that in the EOD elite specs, right? It was a little confusing to me. I looked at EOD, I'm like, man, where are all the really busted support specs to compete with Path to Fire, right? And
heal mechanist.
Yeah, you have heal mechanist, right? Like mech, they juiced that build up really hard. And obviously everything else literally getting cut in two really helped it. But yeah, like there aren't that many supports. A lot of them are boon focused, but they're more like offensive boon supports. It's very interesting. I expect to see them push the game more in that direction. It's got me unbelievably curious about what the strike challenge modes are going to look like. Actually, what's that going to look like? Is it going to be like a raid where you do need this slightly more Trinity-esque approach to it that we've come to know and love from playing raids, or is it going to be something else entirely? Are they going to keep this very heavy mechanical focus? Maybe. We'll see. It's got me very interested. I can't wait for the first Strike CM. And look, now we're going to segue back into what Deroir was talking about, okay? Because in the same way that the future of the game is unknown, we also don't know when Strike CMs are going to come out, right? I'm a little surprised we haven't heard anything about that.
That was actually kind of
they did say. They did say,
wait,
even before the game came out.
They said some like random bullshit like in the coming weeks or months.
Coming weeks after that.
Yeah, so that I anticipate that to mean within, like, they're going to say something about it in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
No?
I mean, maybe, but we still don't know. I don't have the information, Sneb. Have you got leaks?
Sure, I mean, we don't know for sure, but unless they completely go back on that, which would be a step backward from what they've been doing recently, then I would anticipate that we have some communication by beginning of next month. Right. So first week of next month, they let us know.
But is that going to be information just on the strikes, or is that going to be?
I think it'll be both, right? They'll be like, hey, Strike CM's coming out on X, and also this is what we're thinking about doing for the next at least a couple of months.
I could very much imagine a scenario where we go through and get all the CMs for the strikes out before we hear anything. And I don't think all the CMs are going to drop instantaneously. I think it's going to be a couple of months before we actually, yes, I think they're going to kind of just hold their cards close to the chest for now. Let the content slowly dribble out for the hardcore players. And then once that's all done, and then some more information, which could be a couple of months. Yeah, easily. Depending on the cadence on like, is it going to be a CM a week? Is it going to be every other week? How are they actually going to do it? When is it going to start? What's that cadence going to look like with the festivals coming up as well? Are they going to overlap? Stuff like this kind of like puts me in a situation where I honestly don't expect to hear anything before after summer. All the vacation stuff and all that regular old downtime. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, when you say anything, what do you mean by
I mean like what comes after, like what is the next step? Because we know what the next step is, so to speak. It's the CMs are going to be released.
Okay.
But what is after that? Like what is the plan after that? What's their roadmap? What are they going to like? All the festivals are still going to come. The CMs are still going to come. There's still a lot of stuff just in the pipeline right around the corner. But just on the topic of what actually comes after End of Dragons, I think it's gonna be sometime August. We'll hear something. July maybe.
So you think there's not going to be new anything more than what we already know is coming until August then?
No.
Wow.
But that's what I expect. I don't. Again, I haven't. How the fuck would I know? This is just a guess. But that was what I was kind of leaning into when I asked, "What do you expect?" and what would you think is the smart move? Like, when would you think is necessary? Because I think it would be much greater for them to do it sooner rather than later. And I think August is a bit late. But I fully expect that to be possible.
I think you might be onto something there, because if you think about it, I imagine the really quick turnaround of the expansion is probably biting him in the ass right now, right? Because they probably went all in on EOD. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we know that they were working on Living Story Season 4 before Path of Fire release, correct?
There's no way they're not prepared.
Yes.
For the next thing. There's no way.
Yeah. I think.
Oh yeah, they've obviously already started working on whatever is next. The question is just like, what is the cadence for that? What are their plans?
Yeah. So I imagine that they're probably a little bit less prepared than usual than they would be, because of how hard they probably went on EOD to just get it out the door after Icebrood Saga. So there could definitely be a delay. Will we hear about, are we going to hear about some of the news pretty soon? Look, to kind of talk, address what you were talking about earlier, I think we'll hear pretty damn soon. I think Sneb said before the end of the month. I think that is extremely likely. I'd be very surprised if we didn't hear, hey, here's the roadmap, right? Because, ArenaNet's been trying to communicate a lot better. So I think we're probably going to have a good idea of what's happening, at least in the next 6 months, relatively soon, within a few weeks. And yeah, I obviously completely agree. Yeah, the earlier the better, right? People want to know what's going to happen, next. And I think they have a lot of momentum, right?
But for Path of Fire, they were very, I don't remember when they actually said this, but they were very vocal very quickly. And to my memory, I think they were open about it before Path of Fire actually came out, that the Living Story was going to kick up shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, they haven't said anything to that extent. And
ooh, that's some detective work there. That's some big brain. My God.
I wouldn't fault them for doing it though. Like, I mean, it's just It's just a couple of months here and there. I feel like it's very reasonable for it to take a couple of months after a big release like this for them before they actually come out with, here's the next thing. But
with that in mind, then you're saying that there's going to be around a 5-month gap before we start getting kind of the next step. So we're going to have Strike CMs. They'll be released over like a month or two, right? And then you're expecting stuff to kick off again in August. Do you think people are okay with that? What does that look like?
That's exactly the thing. I don't know if people are necessarily okay with it, but I think they'll have to be, I guess. I mean, yeah.
I think they were going to... Look, in my ideal world, and I think the best business move is to tell us what's coming in a few months and then release some more content in like July. I would be really surprised if they haven't planned for something like that. Does that have to be an entire new map? I don't know. But they've got to keep the cadence going. They've got momentum right now, right? They cannot break the momentum. This is huge. The fact that all of us came here and we're all like, EOD is the best thing they've ever made. Why in the world would they stop now, right? They absolutely need to keep producing.
But I don't think it's a question of whether they'll stop. They're definitely not planning on stopping. It's just a question of like how fast can they do it? How fast can we realistically expect them to keep this cadence up? Like July, if they gotta meet this bar every single time, then we might want to give them a bit more time and a bit more leeway to just kind of take the time to do it right.
The thing is, if they're planning strategically, what they're going to do is they've already decided that they're going to release something in certain... they already have Living World Season 6 planned, right? Like they've already done this even before EOD. And the reason is because they want to keep this cadence. I would be shocked if they didn't deliver something midsummer, right? July, maybe... Yeah, I would say July is probably when I would expect the next release. And then after that, probably like... I don't know, 3 or 4 months after that, just slowly trickling these new things in. Does it have to be a new map every time? I don't know, but there's got to be constantly new content coming out, and that's the way they're going to...
I think the way that I perceive the summer months, at least from the past couple of years, is that it's kind of notorious for just being filled with different festivals that kind of just take up time and give them more leeway to just say, okay, yeah, we have a patch coming out. It's festival. We have, for the last, 2 years, 3 years of the summer, had pretty high downtime. It's not been like super, super exciting summers for Guild Wars 2. It's just been festivals.
So I haven't had an expansion in like 5 years, and we just had like the best expansion they've made.
Yeah.
So yeah. I agree with you, right? I totally see what you're saying. I just think now's the time for them to switch things up. They've already changed a ton of stuff, and they have all this new leadership who's clearly had a huge hand in making this happen. So I guess I have just a lot of faith in them at this point. I believe they're gonna go.
I don't want you to come up there to take this as like me not having faith in ArenaNet. I think I have a lot of faith in them producing something really well, but I just don't really expect them to push it out as fast as we want them to really do it.
I think you're speaking to the practicality, right? You're speaking about the reality of the situation, right? That
the reality of them going from like a huge
for them
project
to deliver something in 5 months. I feel like yes, if they planned well, right? That's what I'm saying. If they have no plans, if they went all in on EOD and they're all like burnt out, then we're probably looking at like end of August, September. Yeah.
But there's always the practicalities of like you have to switch people around, you have to come up produce new teams for whatever is happening, who's working on what, who's dealing with the bugs, all of these things that are coming out later for Ender Dragons, the CMs, stuff like this. Who's like there's a lot of, I know ArenaNet is a big company, and they probably have been working on whatever is next ever since they stopped working on Ice Fruit Saga, but like with other teams. But still, there's a lot of practicality that goes into just like the production side of this. And I wouldn't fault them from going from 2 huge projects and then coming out right after that saying, okay, we might need just a little bit more time. And the summer is perfect time to just kind of say, okay, we already have festival after festival and the CMs and whatnot to fill in a couple of months to give us that buffer to just say, okay, yeah, sure. This is kind of practical for us. It fits really well in our schedule, and it's only the neckbeards here, myself included, that will be annoyed at the fact that it takes a while.
I think that
mean,
what hinges on sort of our discussion here is what do they deliver, right? Because the practicality is dependent on what they're trying to deliver. If they're trying to deliver 2 new maps and like a whole new game mode, and then obviously that's not practical. But if they're trying to deliver a small-ish map with some fine tuning, and then maybe it is. I won't speak to what scope is and isn't doable in game dev because I'm not a game dev, right? But I think if they had planned well, then an update in the summer makes sense. Depending on what it is, if they're doing a big map and like some other overhauls, then I think the latest I would want is like September. Now want and is practical. I think for them they need to deliver by September, right? They need to carry the momentum, and I think they know that and that they plan for that.
I'm just gonna say
what
it.
have they planned, right?
I'm just gonna say it. I think Stronghold's coming back.
Yes. No. And I think they're going to bring back the PvP islands from Guild Wars 1, and it's going to be a great blast of like, yes.
Think about it.
Let's push for PvP. Stronghold now.
Think about it. Stronghold had
Siege Turtles in PvP now.
Stronghold had Tengu, right? Yeah, the Tengu Archer.
That's true. There were Tengu Archers.
It's Stronghold's coming.
But they also had Nika, and that didn't really.
Yeah, that was weird.
Into the expansion.
Yeah, that's a little unusual. Yeah, I mean, I think that even if they don't release stuff for a while, I think they have planned for it. In fact, they may have even planned for not being able to release content for a while. We're getting into dangerous speculation territory, right? But we know 100%. that we have alliances are theoretically coming, right? So there's going to be some more stuff about that, right? You know, there's still stuff that they can do, right? You're going to have the DirectX 11 stuff, like Steam launch as well, maybe. I mean, like that we haven't heard about that for a while, but there are still some kind of activities, right? There are events that are going to be happening in the game. Then you kind of throw that in with the festivals, the strikes, CMs, new legendary weapon variants that was pointed out in chat by Kidder there, which is another thing that's going to be coming out as well at some point in the future.
That gives them even more leeway there.
You know, there's some stuff going on there, right? You know, there are activities that will be able to keep people engaged, despite a potential like lack of content for a while, because I think
content.
I mean, ultimately, wait, sorry, what's up? Sorry, second.
Well, I think the big conversation is again, what is content? Like, what do we mean? Do we mean that it has to be a new map with story and a strike mission, or are we saying like what is it exactly that we're looking for them, and what are we talking about?
That is a good point. It's and it's relevant to discuss where our expectations actually are, because like if they came out with just a quality of life update, would we define that as like, oh yeah, they planned this out and did great for the summer, or would that be kind of a letdown?
I would define content as new gameplay experiences.
And those new gameplay experiences, can they be fishing? Can what does that mean, right?
Yeah, I think that, anything that is going to give you a new gameplay experience is content, right? So I would say that a balance patch, for example, could very well be content. So if they do this balance patch, they've said that it's going to be a summer patch now. If they drop that and, oh shit, there's a new build for Warrior, right? Because it's very heavily implied that banners are getting reworked fairly significantly. Yeah, that's content. Right. If they make a new build possible, or maybe, I mean, look, some of the issues right now is that a lot of the new elite specializations are a little lackluster in PvP and World versus World especially, actually. So if there's a patch that makes it so that, oh shit, there's like a new meta in World versus World, yeah, I think that's content. If they go back and they look at something like the new player experience, that would count as content as well. If they did something with season 1, that would count as content. If they reworked something to do with fractals or something to do with raids, right? Or they changed something, right? All of that is content, right? Like modifying the game, I would say is content, such that the experience will be different.
In my opinion, there's no way that they don't do something by July. Then there's no way that they don't give something by July. It doesn't have to be a map. It doesn't have to.
I mean, sure. Yeah. Okay. But I guess in this regard, I would more classify it as like keeping up this cadence of the excitement, and not everyone's going to get equally excited about a balance patch. Like I get that is
true.
content for a lot of people, and quality of life stuff is content for a lot of people, but it's not exactly keeping the hype going from an expansion necessarily for the wider audience, right?
So we're
hype-worthy
like, I mean,
content.
in that case, we're talking about story basically. Like, so
I don't know. And now we're getting
would-
kind of nitty gritty, but
yeah. So do you think that the way the stuff that's going to kind of maintain that momentum is going to be, okay, what happens next, right? New map, new story, new events. Is that the kind of thing that
yes, I
is
think
being
that's
defined as that?
I think that's how I would define it, as something that kind of gets the community more buzzing, talking
Yeah, so
about
we've
the
got
game,
hype-worthy
playing the game.
content and content.
Yeah.
So hype-worthy content, maps, new
because
strike
let's be
missions.
real, like a balance patch doesn't necessarily define the future of what the game might hold, but a new story, living story patch or whatever, with a new map or area or whatever, anything, not even a new map, but just like a new story on a map that we already have. Anything that kind of pushes that is much more, I guess, engaging for the wider audience to see where the game is going forward and blah blah blah.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay.
I don't know. It's but again, we're getting into the nitty gritty. It was just kind of a
Do you think a feature like alliances can do that?
I think it could, but
It's only for one subsection though.
Yeah, for some reason I find myself being completely disengaged from alliances. Like I kind of, for the longest time, like I know I kind of opened this whole podcast by saying that I've been very disengaged from the community, and I think definitely that helps to disengage me from the alliances, since that is a very community driven feature. But overall, I feel like it's just had such a low impact, and like maybe I'm just not in the communities that are really engaging with it, but it just kind of flew under the radar. It didn't really feel like it changed much, except for some people got to play together with their guild, and that didn't really seem all that new and exciting to me. It just kind of like, maybe I'm misinterpreting it, maybe I'm missing the bigger picture. It just, I think it would have to be more than just, you can join up with your guild now, and we call the groups now alliances. I think there had to be more stuff involved in that patch to actually engage and hype the community at a larger scale.
May I offer a reason for why I think you feel like that? Because I feel similar, and I'm curious if you actually feel the same way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, there is twofold. One, they've already told us alliances were going to come out like 3 different times, and then they didn't, right? And so for me, I've already been like super excited a bunch of times about alliances. Now I'm just kind of like, just show me the thing. Right?
Yeah.
just give it to me.
Just
right?
get it over with. Come on.
Yeah, just rip the Band-Aid off. Show me the alliances. So that's part of it. Also, because I'm not like, I play World vs. World. I think it's really fun, and I actually love watching some World vs. World streamers, because it seems really exciting. And though I've never gotten that into it, I can respect it. I'm not that, that's not my content. So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, well, alliances aren't necessarily for me. In Guild Wars 1, and when I hear alliances, I always think of Guild Wars 1, because I'm a Guild Wars 1 player. And I think about, how alliances brought guilds together, and then for a common goal of trying to collect faction and do these different farms and things so that they could deliver the faction, so they could boost their guild's reputation, so that they could take over a city, so that they could get discounts, so that more people would want to join their guild. And there was kind of this prestige element to being in an alliance, and like doing something in, it's not really quite open world like Guild Wars 2, but doing PvE content, right? And that's not what alliances are in Guild Wars 2. Alliances are strictly for one game mode. And it's not a game mode I play a lot or am super engaged with. So that's why I'm not super into alliances, because it feels like there should be more to an alliance that actually bleeds into things like PvE and stuff as well, perhaps, but maybe in a different way. I don't know. It just feels strange, right? It's only one game mode, and it only does the specific thing, and we don't know if there's anything much. We don't have all the details about what else there's going to be with that. Is that kind of similar to how you feel?
I can kind of relate with what you're describing here. I guess at one point I did have like these dreams of like oh yeah, Cantha is going to come. We're going to have all the factions, and the factions are going to be essentially just alliances, and maybe all of that could tie in together, and it would be this one big thing that had ripple effects in the I was about to say the real world, damn, in in PvE. But at this point, it just kind of seems like a new grouping with a new name, and yeah, I don't know. It doesn't.
Wow.
It doesn't feel impactful to me at a broader scale, unless you are in a community that is excited about World vs. World and excited about playing together. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just completely missing the point here.
Do you think this is perhaps a
I
bit of a
recognize
consequence of that you see in every area of the game? Is this not perhaps that the game isn't very competitive right now? So there's not a lot of prestige with being attached to a certain guild?
Yes, that too. I mean, the game is notoriously anti-competitive. We don't really. I mean, there are communities that really embrace the competitiveness of this, but the game as a whole and the design of it does not exactly encourage and inspire competitiveness. Sure, we have the like PvP leaderboards, but most of the communities is kind of like anti whatever is at the end of that because it's too much grind, or the turtle egg is a bit too hard to get because it's.
Ooh.
I mean, like just to kind of bring it in,
It's not
bring it
going
all together.
Yeah, that has social consequences.
Yeah, but it's like it just. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, with the anti-competitiveness, it's like it almost feels like it doesn't really fit in the current state of the game or the community, I guess I should say. Yeah, we've kind of gone through the biggest phase of everyone being hyper competitive, the hardcore raid guilds and stuff like that. And now we're just kind of on the other side of like, what's next? Are we actually? Yeah, I don't know. It's a social.
You know
game.
what?
I don't know. Yeah.
Let me switch things up. Let me switch things up a little. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, brother. You go.
No, I was just gonna say, like, they're in the perfect place right now for something like this because all of the competitive guilds have quit, all of the PvP teams have quit, or they got banned for win trading. The World versus World people are still around, but I think that they're just kind of in this like weird coma state where they just press stability on Firebrand and drop warrior bubbles, and that's all they do, and that's all they've done for like 3 years. And then the PvE scene is in this weird state where all of the like hyper omega elitists are kind of gone because a lot of them got banned for duping or they just quit the game because they didn't get any hardcore content for a while, and now there's this like weird void vacuum thing where people are trying to step up and like make things. Fuck, I don't know if I can say this stuff because it's gonna start shit. But it's like we have this.
I thought that was what TeaTime was about.
I was just gonna say, like, we have areas in PvP and World vs. World now where people can step up and be like, okay, here's how to get into these game modes. Here's how to play World vs. World. Here's the tutorial. We can go back to the days of like Tap Dat Mouse making his like God Boon Warrior build and people fighting about how it's just as viable in PvE and whatever, but it's World vs. And we have these new content creators stepping up, trying to teach people how to do PvE stuff now and trying to teach people like, here are the boons. Here's how you organize subgroups and all this stuff. And that's caused a lot of drama. And we're going to see, I guess, who ultimately comes out on top in this scenario. But I think the new age of content creation and like how to do Guild Wars 2 is going to come up. Maybe this is the time where I finally make that video I wanted to make years ago about how to understand the game engine and mechanics and how Guild Wars 2 works and how to solve it. This might be a good time to finally do that because I was teaching Brobo how to play the game and he got into QT because he got so fucking good and I just rage quit. I was like, fuck this. People don't understand Guild Wars 2 and Brobo was literally a 2 out of 10 player. And I taught him how to play Guild Wars 2 for 3 days, and he literally joined the best guild in the entire game because he figured it out. And it just frustrated me. But this is the perfect time to go do something like this because suddenly there's this meta and people are struggling with it. And learning how to play the fucking game would be perfect for that. Maybe this is the big reset of Guild Wars 2. This
Yeah.
is where we just start over and we just go. It's not about this whole like gap that we're talking about, and content's not going to come out until July or August. Maybe this is where we make the content. Maybe we make our own content.
I do
Maybe we
actually
should
tend to agree with that.
Full circle.
Yeah,
It's like-
I do. Yeah, I do think this is a big thing. I think a lot of the stuff in the game is exciting if the community makes it that way, right?
Yeah,
If the game is competitive and people, I'm not saying, oh, you got to take it super seriously. This is a video game, it's serious business. But if people actually look and go, oh yeah, okay, we're going to take this seriously and we're going to make this exciting by having that kind of competition, then yeah, it can be really, really hype. And I think that's what's been missing from the game for a long time, is that no one gives a fuck, right? Especially the top players. This is a really big problem, is that it's the top level scene in basically every game mode has an insane degree of apathy. It's not even like hatred, right? They don't even hate the game. They just don't care, right? And that is why you end up with people doing stupid shit, right? It's because they have such a high degree of apathy. It's just like, whatever, right? Doesn't matter. They're
like
bored.
that? Like, why do they not care? Yeah, they're bored.
Some of that is to do with content for sure. However, I do think some of it is because of lack of community organization. You could say, oh, well, ArenaNet, they should provide, a competitive outlet. Oh yeah, they should run esports. And yeah, maybe they should. You're not wrong, actually. Probably wouldn't work very well anymore, but yeah, sure. Maybe there is some kind of onus on the company to do this stuff, but I think the community can do it as well, right? When I first did Masters of the Arena, the game actually felt insanely alive in PvP, like really alive, and I haven't really been able to replicate that. It's difficult to do, but yeah, the PvP scene was really, really active. People were hyped up to play PvP during that, and I think that kind of elicited that response. Like, doing that is, I think, how you get things going again. Like, if alliances come around and the system makes people competitive because of the way it operates, then that is kind of ArenaNet doing this. They're going to make people go, oh shit, let's actually think about this game. Let's make it exciting. Let's actually make it interesting. I think that can cause people to also make the game fun as well.
So a new World vs. World tournament in game.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I don't know
do a player tournament.
Could also do that too.
Yeah. I think also now, so you have a bunch of new people coming in and a bunch of people that have come into the expansion and they don't really know about the older content, like dungeons specifically. Here, fucking Brazil talking about dungeons again. Let's go, I guess. But I did dungeons with some really good people, Grimjack and kind of his crew, a while back, and I thought I knew how to do dungeons, but the strategies that I was up on were fairly old, but they're still quick and they're still efficient. I fucking did dungeons with these people, but you have left or near playing thief, and it's just I watch their videos or play with them and see them do shit, and it's just like, what? It's, you go do a boss and the boss dies in 2 seconds, and then a thief just appears and puts a portal down, and then the next boss is just right there. It's like, what the fuck is this? You have blinking through walls at shit that's not targeted. You have people that understand the game better than anyone else ever has in the history of the game. Like, Grimjack is literally the best player in every single game mode. True. He understands the game. Literally, unironically. Like, fuck you, Valen. Like, you're just gonna say it. Like, wow. Grimjack is the best player in every game mode, and this would be the perfect time. Grimjack could just be like, here's a video on how to play Guild Wars 2 in PvE. Here's literally every single trick that you can learn, and you can have all the good thieves drop tips for playing a thief. And so suddenly they're not this weird obscure YouTube channel that you have to know people that know people that know people to find, because I didn't know who any of these people were, and I know a lot of people. But you see the shit that they're doing, it's like, are we playing the same video game? This looks like a Mario 64 speed run. What the fuck? This is Guild Wars 2. You have people that could teach everything about the game, and with strike missions and Dragon's End and all this content that's a little bit more challenging, this would be a great time to show people, and people would want to learn it. Some people don't care, but learning all of that stuff would be huge right now. That would be fucking awesome. Yeah. And you've got World versus World people that teach about boons and stacking and how to do this and how to follow a tag, because people just don't get that. But I don't know, like if maybe we don't get content until July, like who cares? Like, what if we just learn the game a little bit better and we teach people to play the game, and then the new content comes out, you smash it, and you just have a fucking party, and it's great. That'd be awesome.
I can feel
That'd
us.
be awesome.
I can feel us sliding. I can feel us sliding inexorably towards one particular elephant in the room. But before we do that, we'll do that. We'll do that directly after this. Here's a question that I think is actually really obvious that I can't believe we haven't talked about. Do you think they're working on another expansion?
No.
Ooh.
No.
That was a fast no. That was a fast no.
There's no way they're already working on another expansion. I just don't see it.
I think they could be storyboarding.
There's a difference between storyboarding the story and talking about whether or not we're doing an expansion and actually having the funding to go and do it. I think there's a huge difference in just keeping the game running all the time or striving towards only making expansions. I mean, and Guild Wars 2 just hasn't. I mean, I know historically we've ended up with now 3 expansions over the course of 10 years. But it's never really seemed like ArenaNet wanted to go for expansions until maybe now. But so I could be wrong. It could be that they've just completely switched and they're going full on expansions. But I think they want to push out more Living Story or something, even though that's not necessarily the best.
I think that's fine.
Do you think they will do another expansion?
Ooh.
As in ever, right? Okay, let's say 3 years, 4 years. Do we see another expansion?
I think it all boils down to how high the retention sticks after End of Dragons. Does the player base stick around? Does the player base grow? Or are we in a recline here after 10 years? And I can't say that, obviously. We know that the community right now is doing really good. We're probably doing better than ever. It's a really healthy community. Lots of players playing. The question is, does the hype really carry on for much longer? Would it be, I mean, from a purely business perspective, and I almost feel like a broken record here, but would it not just be smarter to invest your money in a new IP because it's easier to market? There might be a new revenue stream to go towards in the near future. Who knows? I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not I believe that they are actually working towards another expansion. And I don't think that they have the answers right now either. And it'll take a while before they probably have that data to say, yeah, okay, sure, let's invest a bunch of money into making another X-Pack.
See, I take the exact opposite stance. I think they are absolutely 100% going to make another expansion. They just dumped all this money into DX11, and then they dumped a ton of money into marketing the game with influencers, and then they dumped a ton of money into EOD, and they're also hiring more positions.
And I think all of those
said it's true, and he's our prophet. So.
And I think if I may just comment on that, I think all of those factors alone, or just in a vacuum, are ArenaNet trying to see if End of Dragons is the breath of life that Guild Wars 2 needed for the future. Can they bring in enough players to justify keeping this going, or should they scoot over to something else? If this investment pays off, then yeah. Boom. Yes. Hard facts. Let's go. X-Pack 4. But
you wanna know the real take on this? Whether or not they develop a new this is actual truth. This is sorry, but this is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they make a new expansion depends on how many turtle skins they sell.
How are they going to do that though?
Oh no.
Oh no, too soon. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I hear you. I think, I mean, to an extent, you're right. Like, if this flops super hard, then they can't justify dumping more money. It would be a lost cause, right? They might as well say like, all right, we made some bad investments. I just think this is trending in the right direction. Like, I don't have the math, right?
Yeah.
But when I look at new player zones and I see lots of new players, when I see high accolades for EOD, when I see people all over social media being really positive about the game that haven't been positive in a long time, I think, this is an upward trend. Now, does that equate to dollar and cents? Maybe not right now. I don't know. I don't know what the financials are, but it certainly
I don't.
feels
Yeah, I
like
don't think
it's good.
that Ender Dragons is a. I mean, I don't think they're losing money on this. Just for the record, I think it's
Yeah.
definitely good business for them. All of these factors. It's just whether or not they have the retention going forward to say, okay, yeah, we're sticking to this community. We have a growing community. The game is, growing. Not to say the same thing again, but
Enlarging, engorging.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I see what you're saying. They want to see an upward trend. Otherwise, they're just
Yeah.
gonna. Honestly, I don't think the community necessarily has to grow super big. That might sound weird, but like I think the big thing is like, is it profitable? They're a company, they're a business. Overall, is it still profitable? And their financials have, even before EOD. Like, I'm really curious to see what the NCSoft financials look like after EOD. But before EOD, they were trending up. So
With no content.
yeah,
Literally no
So
content.
actually, Isa brings up a good point here. Do we think that an expansion is a loss leader? Like, is the idea that they make the expansion, but they don't really gain any money off the expansion. They gain money purely off the retention of players and gem store items. Is that really what we think, or is them selling a copy of EOD alone profitable?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, let's be real. Nowadays, paying $60 for any game doesn't actually. It's definitely not enough, like per player, to actually fund the production of a game. Realistically, you could double the price of the box itself for any video game out there, and it will probably then start to make sense for game developers to actually, I mean, feel like they're making money and making a profit. Right now, it's just kind of like floating along the stream, as far as I understand it. Obviously, I'm not in the industry like that, but it, like, selling an expansion for $60 is not a win on itself. It's what comes after.
Of course, like retaining players and getting them to buy microtransactions. That's the name of the game in Guild Wars 2. It's one of the reasons why the box price is so low and why it's free to play, right? It's so that players can get into it and access the game. They say, hey, get in there, and then bam, right? Then you buy something on the store, right? You buy gold, right? Too. I imagine a lot of people buy gold. That's something that I guarantee that's something that a lot of people don't even think about. Like, I'd be super curious to know how many people buy gold in this game. I think it's a lot. I think a lot of people buy gold, actually. Because gold's kind of hard to get. It's hard to get.
And I think a lot of people don't want to admit that they buy it as well, because there's a bit of a stigma to it.
Of course, yeah.
But I mean,
what about that? So I can't believe that
I feel like something crazy is about to happen.
It's about to get.
If you go to Teapot's, one of your latest videos in the comments, I made a copy pasta and posted it in stream, saying something like, I bought 69,000 gems and I can't get my turtle from Dragon's End. I'm going to charge back every one of my gems if you don't nerf the meta. It was something along the lines of that. And there's unironically a comment on one of the videos saying, to whoever in chat said that they bought 69,000 gems, that's a small number. I've bought over 100,000 gems and I'm in the minority. You can't imagine how much the whales actually spend in this game. And so I screenshot that and posted it on Twitter, and fucking like people like MMO Inks are like, oh yeah, I've at least bought 100,000 gems playing Guild Wars 2. It's just like, what? You have like, there are probably fucking people, there are probably like 25 people out there single-handedly bankrolling ArenaNet and funding the whole studio, and then there are probably like 1,000 people that do like half of that, and like Grouch gets to take home his bonus, and he gets to hang out in people's Twitch streams all day because he's making so much money he doesn't have to do anything anymore.
Okay.
And then the rest of the people are probably just like, boop, here's my hair kit, boop, here's my gold, boop, here's my exotic armor for my alt that I want to play one time in a raid and a character slot. Like, they're probably making a fuckload of money. I don't think there's like, they probably don't even have to make it. They probably could stop making content now for the next 5 years, and they'd probably still make enough fucking money.
I'm not sure it's that good.
No, it's probably that good. It probably seriously is. You have people unironically willing to admit that they've bought over 100,000 gems. This Inks literally said, "Let me self-expose a little bit. I've bought over 100,000 gems." And
I mean, look. I mean, I'm a big fan of the game. I like supporting the game. I personally, I don't think I've either only done it once because I was just short of like 50 gold. But I don't think I've ever converted gems to gold other than maybe one time because I was like trying to do something quick.
Like, here you have it, Inko
But I've
63.
spent thousands of dollars
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
game.
guys, like,
I
you
spent
know,
$13,000 on gem cards.
Yeah, look, this is not we're not calling people out, guys. We're just like marveling at the craziness.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with buying
Yeah, it's
gems. Dude, I've probably spent upwards of, I want to say, $5,000 on this game.
I
at this point.
probably easily spent 2.
Yeah.
Like, for real. And
Oh, yeah.
like, seriously, like, I could imagine easily doing that over the course of 10 years of playing a game. But there are people that
I have
like,
no idea how much I have, but yeah, I mean, I think
you
we're all in that
have
camp.
literally every item in the game. There's no way you have
I think-
less than $100,000.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've spent so much on all the convenience stuff. There's like so many things, so many upgrades to get that are just like, yeah. I mean,
Deroir alone
whatever,
is
fuck that.
he's probably paid Colin Johansson's entire salary for 3 years.
easily.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's good to have perspective on where the money's coming from, right? And it isn't box sales for Guild Wars 2. Wait, Guild Wars 2, their money comes from MTX. Absolutely, right? 100%.
And what an expansion does is that it reinvigorates a lot of players to keep spending. It essentially just goes,
and
like,
it gets more players, of course, new players too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it adds new features, new mounts to get new skins for, or a Jade bot to get a new skin for, or a fishing rod to get a new skin for, or a skiff to get a I can keep on going with this.
I've got something. I'm really curious here. I'd be curious, like, to survey the chat here. Currently, they're doing like March sales, and there's some different skins, and there's some item, like, I don't know if they've done character slots yet, but they did like the bank expansion and stuff, or the material expansion.
Mhm.
I'd be curious, how many people have bought gems in the last 2 weeks?
I insta
How many people? Like, put a
gems
smiley
just to
face.
get those
Insta
extra-
swipe.
Like
Corpa
if you
in the
could get
chat.
2 more material storage, boom, instantly.
One
Like I didn't even
Corpa-
think of it.
Yeah, look,
One
absolutely.
Corpa for every gym purchase in the chat. One Corpa for every gym purchase.
Look, see, people absolutely have. So that's really interesting. Right? I mean, they released this little thing. They added 2 more of the expansion slots for the material storage or whatever. And I was like, all right. And I really liked EOD, right? So I thought, hey, I'm willing to chuck some more money at them because they just produced content I really like. I mean, that's how I operate.
Yeah.
I didn't spend money on gems for ages because I just wasn't really. I was like, I don't want to show them that I like this content, because I don't currently like it. So whenever there's been a time where I feel like ArenaNet's been like doing really well, like I really like the content, I always try to show my support, whether it's by buying merch or by buying some gems or whatever. And I think that so many people are into EOD right now that that they're buying. And did I buy the gem version of EOD? Yeah, I did. I think a lot of people do that. Good value, because then you just buy the
ultimate,
quality of life
the
stuff right after.
ultimate edition. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because also the partner referral links. If you buy the $30 version and then the partners get a kickback, I don't remember what percent because they kicked my ass out years ago. But if you buy the $30 version and then the partners get a percentage of that back, it's not a lot. Like they're making like $2 off the sale of the box net. But yeah. I don't know.
No comment.
Remember when the flame weapons first came out? I spent $90 just getting one weapon. Very good, Inks. I feel you. Yeah.
Good times.
I'll self-expose if I'm gonna expose other people. I'll do it. So
Okay.
I have a stack of teleport to friends.
Ooh.
Just because when that
Damn, but did you buy them? What?
when the fucking Celestial Cape came out,
Ooh.
the one that had the 4 die channels that you
Yep.
could like die all the way down, I probably bought 800 Black Lion keys because it took me that long to get the fucking chest. Like I was buying them, I literally got locked out of my account because I was buying so many gems and they thought it was fraudulent. I had to email support and escalate my ticket saying, "No, look, this is seriously me buying gems.
So that I can get the cape.
Yes, I want the damn cape. This is also the only mount skin that I have. I have that fucking Woodland Sprite Springer, the worst mount skin in the entire game, because I got that trying to unlock the fucking cape. It was like I was swiping like crazy. I was just fucking, let's just go. I've been working overtime, my job. Let's just get this shit out here. Let's just fucking do it. But yeah, like people do that. People have to do stuff like that. You key farmers, you're fucking casuals. Just get that credit card out. Stop wasting your time. It's completely futile. Just swipe the card.
On the other end of the spectrum, I've never felt that about any item in the game. I don't feel like any of the skins have any value.
One thing I saw that and I was like, "Fuck! I have to have this." And I don't even use it.
Are you still? I was about to say, are you still using it?
No, I got over that in like 3 days. I just felt so much regret.
Classic.
I was like, "What did I do? I could have literally bought this $1,200 camera lens, and how much fucking money I spent to get that cape that I got sick of using in 3 days." But
big value, man.
Yeah. That's something.
I mean, we've all kind of been there, maybe not in that style, but yeah. I love this self-exposing. That's a big fan of this.
With getting that catharsis, just really letting it all out.
Yeah, I had to let it out. I've had that building up for a long time.
I forgot where we were going with this.
I've got no idea. I have no fucking clue. Right, I think we were talking about if they were doing an expansion or not.
Yeah, they have to do another one because if we're going to do this whenever the expansion launches, they're probably going to release 10 more expansions. Let's just be honest.
Damn. So in 100 years,
they release one turtle skin.
End of Guild Wars 2. Nice.
No, I think that well, I mean, just to kind of bring it back to the topic, I'm going to say it. I think they are going to do another expansion. Don't know when, but they will. There's no way they would not do another expansion. They do DX11. They rework World versus World. No way.
This is a great setting off point for them to just let it ride its own thing, right? The community can do its own whatever. We've set up all the parameters to be successful now.
Yeah,
we can move on now.
Yeah, they're also doing Steam as well, so that they come on. You don't look. You don't launch.
I will. Yes, I will.
Why do you have sunglasses?
Well, I mean, why don't I have sunglasses?
Why not?
Why not?
It's inside.
Look,
trying to. He's currently opening Black Line chest.
I'm doing it right now. Look, I'm opening my 1,000 Black Line keys on stream, and I have to blind myself so I can't see how bad it is. They're doing Steam as well. Imagine releasing your game on Steam if it's maintenance mode. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I will agree that there are a lot of indicators that they're gonna keep going. I'm not gonna
it's not over.
Sugarcoat that, but I'm just saying.
You know what else? You know what isn't gonna keep going?
What?
The siege turtle being locked behind Dragon's End.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
It was a mistake. I'm just gonna be honest. It was a mistake.
Yeah, it was.
It was because
I don't think so.
No, fuck you.
I think it was about time that they did something proper with a mount.
Holy shit!
Even if it was like, I know this was like they locked a whole ass mount behind it. Sure, that is a bit extreme. I was just wanting for like a skin to drop from a boss or something like that. But yeah, honestly, I think it was about time that they actually introduced proper rewards to a boss fight. I mean,
see, you're kind of right. You're kind of right.
yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the problem. If they had never announced Siege Turtles, if it was just like a surprise that you get, like, because you get to do them in Dragon's End when you're destroying the like rubble and the shields. The NPCs are just randomly like, okay, we have. They literally say it's turtle time, and then Siege Turtles appear and they start blowing up rubble and shit. If all of a sudden, if that's the only exposure you had to turtles the whole time, and the turtles were locked behind dragons, then that would have been okay. But the problem is that they announced Siege Turtles. They had 5 different trailers about Siege Turtles, just Siege Turtles. Yeah. Literally just Siege Turtles. And then you have every MMO website and little cretin reviewer on the corner of the internet suddenly coming out and saying, I played Guild Wars 2 Siege Turtles and it's the best content I've ever done. And there's footage of them in the background riding around AFK, dropping bombs on enemies and critting for like 30k. And most players in the game have never seen a 30k crit in their life because they're running around playing fucking Celestial Mesmer with 6 different runes. So everybody's just like, oh fuck, a turtle. This is cool.
So what you're saying is that it's proper to assume that players would be excited enough about this mount that they would actually try to get it.
Well, yeah, and it should have if it was a core feature, if it was just a core feature that you could have just insta unlocked, it would have been fine. And then if they put a badass turtle skin where it's like Suwon is the turtle and you get to ride on that with a friend and there are like cannons that shoot off and something crazy like that, if they locked that behind Dragon's Den, that would have been cool. People would have got mad and complained, but who fucking cares at that point? But having the turtle hard lock, and I'll even say this too, having it locked behind Kining Overlook Strike Mission, the collection, I think that's also a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's going to cause some problems.
I really think that was a mistake. I think they should have just let people have the fucking turtle, and I think there would have been 1/10 of the drama and outrage that there was.
Well,
but are we trying to negate the drama and outrage, or are we trying to strive for a better experience and a better reward system in the game?
Well, like, if they just made Dragons
if we're trying to negate for any mishaps or misgivings or any annoyances that players might experience, then yeah, sure. I mean, give them whatever the fuck they want. I mean, I don't give a shit.
Well, why can't it be both?
Do we want there to be a carrot at the end of the stick? I mean,
yeah, just make Dragon's Den give like 100 gold, something fucking crazy, and it would have been fine.
The issue is though, is that I don't disagree with either of you. Actually, I'm gonna sit on the fence. Except I'm actually not.
I love how we're starting here, where I'm simply polar opposite to everything else.
It's simply the degree of this. Like, for example, let's imagine it. Well, let's look at the numbers now. I would say the success rate for the Dragon's End Suwon meta is probably, well, now after it's been nerfed, it's probably like, I don't know, 25%, maybe like 33, maybe 40% at this point, because people started to get used to it. At the start, the success rate for the meta, again, I'm speculating here, but from what I understand it, probably less than 5% is the success rate. So let's imagine the world where we, instead of Suwon having 5% win rate, it released and the meta win rate was 66%. Okay, all right, now people will be a little bit less mad. Now let's imagine the reality where it doesn't have like an hour-and-a-half pre-event. Okay, people will be a little bit less mad now. Now let's imagine the reality where it's not the Kining Overlook strike, it's the My Trin strike instead. Okay, now people are a little bit less mad, right? You can still get what you want by integrating a little bit more engagement into the reward structure. You just have to do it in a slightly careful way, right? So this meta event, Dragon's End, is a step up in an almost inconceivable way to most of the player base. This is about, can people do it? Absolutely. Could people do it if they tried a little bit to learn? Yeah, absolutely. How do I know this? Because, well, I've done it with a lot of players who have never done anything even close to a raid, right? And I'm able to do it with relatively new players, right? But the thing is that it is a shock. It is a massive culture shock. I think the whole like box, it's on the box argument is, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, I don't know, like, there are does something being on the box mean that you're entitled to get it? It's irrelevant. That's just a red herring. Like no one cares about that. It's a dumbass argument, to be honest. But are there very legitimate reasons why people will be frustrated about this? Absolutely. But you can have it as a box feature and have it with some kind of gameplay related unlock. I don't think that would really be a big deal. It's just that the way it was implemented, it was just way too much. Players they're not ready for that, right? They're just not ready for any kind of anything that's going to fail 90% of the time plus. No fucking way a player's ready for that. Bear in mind that everything else in the game has a 95% plus, realistically 99% win rate. Then you go down to 5%. Yeah, that's going to be a shock.
And I completely agree with the fact that Su 1 is not necessarily the most successful for most players, that experience. But I don't think that has necessarily anything to do with the fact that the turtle is tied to it. I think those are two different subjects, essentially. And I think it's a shame that, they're kind of getting conflated. Because there are a lot of great arguments against the difficulty, the RNG, or whatever that's in the fight that people are actually angry about. I can completely concede that yes, there are some issues with it, but I don't think that the locking the turtle behind an open world boss event is the main issue. I can see that, yes, sure, it's like, yes, because the success rate is so low, there are some intertwined issues here, but I think it should have its right to be there as a reward for beating this boss. I think that we should just be able to talk about how do we refine this boss encounter to be as accessible to as many players as we can, and have that conversation about teaching, helping groups and teaching players and all of these things to the point where, yes, we are now working as a community towards getting this turtle.
Yeah,
I think for the record, if I may, I think for the record, as someone who just kind of viewed this whole discussion from the sideline, I think much of what kind of happened in this discussion, as I saw it, was that a lot of people's egos were getting punched in the face, and I think a lot of people were getting frustrated with some of the hardcore community, essentially saying you are bad and you don't know the basics of the game. I am very much paraphrasing here, by the way, but to hear, I'm going to take a stab at you, Teapot, here for a second, just to give a bit of diversity to my side here. The fact that you said that this fight just requires you to know the basics of the game is extremely pretentious and very finger pointing. I feel like that was putting it too much on the nose. I don't necessarily agree that the fight is super complex, but the basics of the game isn't knowing boons. It isn't being aware of squad compositions. The basics of the game is literally pressing 1 and you can walk around and you can do 99% of the game without anything else. That's the basics of the game. You are taking just a step. You're taking just a step higher to know what boons and squad compositions and all of these things that you were calling the basics of the game that people didn't, grasp. A lot of people didn't grasp.
I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that.
I don't know if I
okay.
Look, okay, I want to address something real quick.
Oh.
I tried what you said. I went around and I tried to help everybody and be like, hey, we can help you with builds, we can help you with stats, we can help you with this, I can teach you the mechanics, I can help you with the squad compositions. This is tough. My mantra was yeah, this is hard, but it's doable. We can do it. I got annihilated for that viewpoint. Annihilated. To the point where I took a break from the game for 3 days because it was mentally destroying me. The amount of messages, so you saying yeah, this is good. Yeah, it didn't work out very well. I tried to be this beacon of positivity, right? And people thought that was evil in some way.
Straight up, I'm just gonna respond to what Deroir said. I honestly don't actually disagree with you. I think that I should never have said that over text, right? Straight up. I think when you say that over voice, it's very obvious the way you intend it, right? When I say, yeah, guys, like, look, we need to teach these core basic game mechanics and then we can do it. I don't think you can go, wow, Teapot, what an asshole for saying that. When you say it on text and people are really, really fucking mad, right? Then yeah, it's impossible to come across well, in my opinion. Like
people were already frustrated by the time that other people started saying you just need to know the basics of the game. And the reality for a lot of players was that they knew how to play the basics of the game. They didn't know the level above necessarily, or they didn't have the coordination or whatever else factors that were factoring into this. By the time that people got to like 10 unsuccessful kills, frustration had built up to the point where you can't really just say to someone, yeah, you just have to do XY set, because they're so frustrated already that they've tried this. They feel like they've tried this. They've gone through all this mental anguish. And now they're just being told, you are just bad. And I know this is putting it very much on the nose and paraphrasing it, because people weren't actually saying get good or anything. It was just in the way that the rhetoric was being put forth was just know the basics of the game, which is, I mean, it's antagonizing.
It was extremely difficult to have the conversation, because the rhetoric around it was really hard to combat, because people were saying stuff like, it is pure RNG, there is no skill. Like, there were multiple people on the subreddit. So my guild at the time, so for context here, at the time my guild had done it 30 times in a row without failing, not even one failure. And people said, you guys are just lucky. And how do I respond to that without saying, no, we just know what boons are?
Well, so I want to take one step back. I think the crux of the argument here is actually that people define the basics of the game differently based on their experience and the content that they do in the game. Because when I heard just press 1 being the basics, I'm like, that's not the basics of the game, right? To me, the basics of the game are like, understanding what your skills do and like how they interact with things around you. You don't have to know like the perfect rotation. You don't have to know any of that, but like a foundational understanding, like, like I'm a ranger. This is kind of like what I do. Those are kind of the basics, the foundational. Then the step up becomes like, how do you organize a group? Because you then have to understand not only what you do, but what others do. So I think that what Teapot said really hurt a lot of people, because they were like, but I do understand the basics of the game. But what Teapot means and what they understand the basics to be are completely different things.
And I think that was where it really started to escalate, because it felt like two different groups were using the same vocabulary, but meaning entirely different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it started getting really toxic. Because you essentially had one side hearing the other side saying, well, get good, like you don't know the game, you don't understand how to actually play this game. And they're like, okay, I've been playing this for 10 years, I feel like I know the basics, but maybe not the basics of coordinated gameplay. Like,
I don't even think it had to do with going the game at some point. I think it was like both sides were just being like, I don't feel heard at all. And it's because they couldn't, there was no common ground, right? There was no like, we understand this to mean X. It was just totally free for all. Everyone was just saying words, but nobody knew what the words meant, kind of thing.
I had a great experience actually in an HS squad. I know this is a bit of a side note, but talking about the basics of the game, I got into an HS squad. The commander was kind of just like talking about like, move yourself to the correct squad. Please move yourself to the correct squad. And shout out to this guy for being super brave, honestly, because this one guy, he asks, how do I move myself to another squad? Like, he literally didn't know how to do just that. And when you're dealing with people that don't know the details of coordinated gameplay in squads or like subgroups or whatever, they just join the tag and they're playing the game. They're doing all the bosses, all of everything. A lot of players don't know these intricacies. And so, when you hear that you don't know the basics of the game just by that, I guess it can feel a little bit hurtful. And I think a lot of people's egos were hurt.
Yeah, and I don't blame it. Honestly, I definitely, to be honest, I know that things started to really get crazy after a few things happened in Twitch chat, right? But to be honest, I think it was actually insanely toxic before that, right? It was already fucked. I don't really think that. I never should have said anything in Twitch chat. There's no question about that. And I honestly, I'm never doing that ever again. Holy shit. But it was already absolutely putrid. It was honestly worse than Sneb's headband, right? That's how putrid it was. And you're absolutely right, Deroir. I think you've really cut to the chase there with saying that it was just players not being able to communicate with each other, right? And definitions not being the same across the board. And I tried to frame it as like, the game is really complicated, and when you say like the basics, you actually mean a lot there, and I would definitely hold to that. I think that when we talk about like core mechanics in Guild Wars 2, there's a lot going on there, right? That's boons, that's squads, that's positioning, that's movement, that's dodging, right? It's even jumping now with a lot of shockwave mechanics, right? That's understanding DPS, that's the lack of global cooldown. This game is hard to play. It's hard to play well at all, actually. Like, there are very few players in the entire game who have a really, really good understanding of how the combat system operates. And it's difficult to have that conversation with people. And this is something that I think Sneb really likes to talk about, and it's very true. It's just that the really big point of friction here was that none of this has ever been relevant before outside of instance content, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ever, right? Okay, like, there's not a single other world boss, including Triple Trouble, by the way, where DPS is actually relevant, right? As in an actual relevant way. Just flat out. And that is why this is Russell, people. So boons haven't mattered before, right? Positioning hasn't mattered before. Mechanics haven't mattered before. None of it's mattered, right? Like with every single open world meta that people farm every day, it is unfailable unless you have like 3 people or everyone shows up late, right?
Well, it's even unfailable with Goon Squad griefing it actively. Like, your Drakars probably still were successful, right, Sneb?
Yeah, they take like 8 minutes longer, but yeah.
Yeah, but it still happened, and you have my guys out there fucking griefing with portals. You have Goon Squad every single day at reset. They get together and do Tequaddle, and they pull creepers into the Zerg and blow everybody up. And guess what? There's still no problem. Easy.
I have one point on the other, just on the topic of none of these other mechanics or factors are used anywhere else in the game kind of deal. That's a bit extreme to say, but I did hear this from the other side of the argument, the more casual players asking for, or not necessarily casual, I don't mean that in a negative way, but
I actually really dislike that we're making
hates
it casual and elite. I think that those are extremely vague terms.
Deroir hates casuals.
It's not even like casual and elite. It's like,
okay, I will try to refrain from using casual and elite. I hope I didn't say elite.
No, I'm not like mad about it. I just think weird. It's so hard to talk about this because those two camps are so fluid, and like it's difficult to identify who actually lives in each of these parts and what they actually mean. Like, what do we define as a casual player?
So I'm gonna try to stay away from the word casual, and then we can come back to how we define each group in a second. But I think just to continue on this real quickly, the flip side of the argument, the opposing side to much of what Teapot was spearheading, I heard some people ask for more ramp up to learning some of these mechanics that were involved, like saying maybe we just had a world boss that really required you to have the break bar broken, or one that would have positioning be relevant, or hardened stacks, or whatever we're going for as an individual mechanic. And I think, honestly, that's already there. And I don't understand where this argument really took shape. Because I feel like there's so many world bosses out there, so many other events and story missions, whatever, that do have all of these individual mechanics of putting the player in a situation where they have to break the break bar, they have to understand that, they have to avoid the big circles, they have to bring stability to get this achievement or whatever. I feel like there's a lot of ramp up for players to have learned the individual things of this fight And I think it's a non-argument to say that we needed a ramp up to the final conclusion of the game because it's already there. I just wanted to have that said. Yeah. was great.
This is where I look. Okay, I mean, I don't even know how people are going to react to what I've said on this TeaTime already. But to be honest, if you really get down to it, this meta is way further. It is not even close to anything else, which is, of course, why a lot of us found it exciting. Yes. It's not just a little bit harder, though. It's like a billion times harder, right? It's well, maybe not that many times, but
it's not like people don't understand what the mechanics are. It's like, yes, I understand that the CC thing is a thing.
They don't.
This is the thing. This is the thing. No, like players. And ArenaNet know this, by the way. ArenaNet know this too. Players learn mechanics, right, of the fights easily. People don't actually have a problem with understanding, okay, go kill the tail, go in the green circle, go here, go there, break the bar, right? That is actually not where people struggle. People struggle with exactly what I said, which is understanding how the combat system works, right? Mechanics, no problem. And this is exactly why people are probably going to have less trouble with the strike mission. They're going to have way less trouble with Kaineng than they will with Dragon's End. Why? It's because the combat system is less relevant there because there's no DPS check, right? Whereas on Su-1, if you do not understand, right, if you don't have the knowledge required to do enough DPS, so if you don't have like a decent build, right, if you don't have, boons, right, subgroup organization, right, if you don't have that, the fight is impossible. It's two very different types of difficulty. Is Kaineng Overlook a harder fight? Yeah, absolutely. It's much harder on a mechanical level in terms of the mechanical intensity. It is. However, you don't need to understand the combat system quite as well to beat it. Whereas with Su-1, honestly, like, this is where people are actually a little bit right about the fact that it's comparable to a raid in some ways, because it does require you to understand stuff like, oh, you want to have boons. Oh, you want to have a build that does damage or does something, right? Like, that's where the knowledge is. The mechanical intensity of it is very, very low. Ultimately, it's like, don't stand in the giant red AoE and you'll probably be fine, and break the bar when the bar comes up. That's not a problem. I don't think players struggle with that whatsoever. Players struggle with actually getting their character to do anything, right? How do they actually get value out of what they're trying to do, right, with their actual character? It's the difficulty and the frustration that players are experiencing is exactly as I described it. It is with the core game mechanics, not the mechanics of the fight itself.
Right, and
does that make any sense? I think that makes sense, right? I think I've communicated effectively.
It does. But here's the thing also. It's not even boons. It's not even the combat system. It's not even DPS. It's that there was that thread on Reddit where the person was complaining about the meta being impossible, and they posted a screenshot and their camera is zoomed all the way in on their character's back, and they have all of the graphics turned up, and you can see every fucking particle effect, and you can barely even see the boss or what's happening. That's like, is that a mechanic? Is that something that people know? Having a higher frame rate is advantageous and stuff like this. Zooming the camera out is advantageous. Having good keybinds is all of this is stuff that's like, that kind of plays into the combat system too a little bit, just being able to fucking see what you're doing. And someone also, I don't remember where they commented, if it was on Twitter, if it was on a video or whatever, but someone said, I can't use Arc DPS because I don't have a second monitor to put it on. And I'm thinking, like, what the fuck? And I asked them, I said, do you have a camera angle that's good? And they replied, like, I've played the game for 10 years. I know what a camera angle is. And it's like, I don't know that you do. But you have, like, there's this whole other side of this shit going on that people just don't get also. And that's fine. You want to have like an immersive MMO experience where you zoom in on your... I was watching Deeg stream, and he's got like right hand over the shoulder warrior Gears of War fucking camera angle, and he's just running around killing mobs, having a blast. But playing like that is completely disadvantageous in a fight like Su-1. you have to do stuff like turn the graphics all the way down to get a good frame rate. We all probably have like Omega hyper gaming PCs. I have an i9 9900K and an 8 gigabyte GTX 1080 and 32 gigs of RAM. I can't fucking play the game on max settings without getting like 15 FPS on Suwon. I have to turn all the shit down. But this is all problematic to people too, and this directly inhibits people being able to do, I guess, what you might also classify as the fundamentals of the game. Because if you have to move from one side of the platform to the other, and there's a Thornheart bombing you, and you have 5 FPS, and you get whirlpooled, like, what the fuck? What do you do? Like, it's actually hard countering you as a person. You're getting hard countered by the game, and you can't do. And people don't know this stuff. They like that's just the reality to it. I'm not saying that if you zoom your camera in on your character that you're playing wrong. I'm just saying that you're at a disadvantage compared to zooming the camera. Stuff is just that simple.
Yeah, it's actually amazing what a big difference those settings make. And like melee attack assist, right? Nobody even knows what that does. I bet there's people listening right now that they're like, what is that?
Camera shake.
Yeah, you just don't. If you don't know those things, they make a huge difference in your ability to impact the fight and to maneuver around. But nobody tells you that, right? You have to like somebody has to like sit you down and like go over this stuff, right?
I feel like I'm already doomed. I'm already doomed from what I said on this TeaTime, but it really is a knowledge gap. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's just if you, it's not even about like being good at the game. You just need to know some shit, right? You just need to know like, okay, that's how that works. That's how that works. Boom. You can play exactly how you play normally, and then away you go.
But we can express this in a way that's not offensive, right? Because I mean, I do this all the time. It's not the player's fault, right? That they don't know this necessarily. The game doesn't just like, here you go. Like if you change these settings, you'll do like 5K more DPS, right? The game's not telling you that. The game also doesn't go, hey, here's what field of view is. It's a matter of them being like forced to engage with the community or with resources outside the game. And so I feel that it's actually the job of community leaders to really help with initiatives like that, right? To say, hey, just randomly while you're streaming, hey, did anybody know that this thing did this, right? And like that's how things spread. But otherwise, like if we were to say, oh yeah, like it's the player's fault, they're not getting good. Well, they don't know those things. How are they supposed to figure that out? And if you're gonna say, oh well, just they need to go do some research. Well, where do you expect them to go, right? Like where? There's a million different things out there, and that's just one piece to the puzzle. It's gonna get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is the thing, you know, I never did blame the players. In fact, I actually strictly said the contrary multiple times, right? You know, I've always said, yeah, like these mechanics are not very well expressed in the game because they aren't. And it's really hard to do so as well. This is one of the really big problems with Guild Wars 2, one of its fundamental design problems. It's really complicated and extremely difficult to express this to the majority of players, right? In a way that will make sense and won't just completely like take them out of the game. Which is why I actually think you're right, Sneb. I think that a large amount of this responsibility does come down to us. And although I think we did a really good job at Hardstuck and got a lot of people through the turtle. I mean, look, there's like another 5,000 members joined our Discord, something like that, like nearly 5,000 at this point have joined. We did a pretty okay job, but just obviously not enough, right? We very obviously don't have enough infrastructure to help enough players to reduce that frustration. I think that's one component of it. I also do think the fight was way too much. Like, despite it being a lot of fun and, you know, being a really cool kind of open world challenge for a guild to go through, I think it was too much. There were so many problems with it, like the map cap, the fact that it had RNG on it, this weird green phase not being very well designed. Oh no, I think that I think this is a topic we should move on from, because I think there's something a little interesting here, and it's is it ever possible to add something like this to the game? Is the question that I have here, and also where is the pressure? Is it on ArenaNet or is it on the community to try and get people ready for this? Because I would tend to lean towards it's actually on us. I view the fact that players struggled with this as actually my fault, right? And not just my fault. When I say my fault, I mean content creators, streamers, community leaders, right? All that kind of stuff. Like, I do view it as our fault. We could teach people a lot better to understand the game. We really could. And we should try and do more to do so. I think there is a version of reality where players are comfortable and know the core game mechanics well enough that ArenaNet could add something like this encounter, probably a bit better designed, right? And maybe not quite as hard. And it could exist without causing problems. Because as, everyone here agrees, it was too far, right? It was obviously a bit too far. It might even be too far now. I would not be surprised whatsoever if it gets nerfed again. But is it possible to add something in the open world that is challenging? Or is that not possible? What do you guys think?
What about Marionette?
That is dead.
Right. Marionette was challenging, but they made the private instance of it. I think Marionette's just kind of a clusterfuck.
Because I don't put good stuff behind it. That's why Marionette's dead. It's not worth the
possibly.
time.
I mean, I like getting stepped on, so I mean, it's rewarding for me, but I don't know.
No, it's 100% about rewards. 100%. I mean,
the community is just generally reward driven. I mean, if there's no reward, there's no incentive, and people aren't going to give a shit unless they're Hardstuck in the game.
And there's different kinds of rewards too, right? There's more intrinsic rewards and more extrinsic rewards, but people tend to be motivated in this game by extrinsic rewards. And so you got to give them something, right? As it stands, and I feel like I've beaten this topic into the ground, but like as it stands, it is more profitable for you to go and stand still on a herald giving boons in Verdant Brink than it is for you to go and attempt Dragon's End.
Yeah, that's great.
Even if you win.
And that's
even if you win.
The problem, right? We're talking about guaranteed income, cash money, baubles for days, right? Versus mental trauma from having to find a group and like you're not organized, half the people aren't listening. It's like free food versus like some really ridiculous journey. So why would you not just do the baubles? If you're reward driven, why would you not just do the baubles or do Drizzlewood Coast or do any of these other things that are almost guaranteed income, right? Guaranteed reward versus other thing. The level of risk and reward in Guild Wars 2 is just way off. We've known this for ages. It still exists with raids, it still exists with fractals and stuff, right? The rewards you get for doing difficult content are not commensurate with the difficulty. That's the foundational problem in Guild Wars 2, and the reason why people are like, look, if this meta was the most profitable meta in the game by a landslide, people would figure out how to do it. I guarantee it. I guarantee they would figure it out. Like if the amount of reward was commensurate with the risk, people would do it. But there's no reason to do it. And it was the turtle, right? But the turtle was a big feature of the expansion, and so it kind of felt a little unfair. But if there was like turtle skins, or if there was like a lot of gold, or a chance at like an Omega infusion, people would figure out a way, right? They would come together and they would try to farm this thing, right?
You can get the chair.
You can buy the chair.
Yeah,
though.
but the chair you can get in another way. The chair isn't exclusive. That's the problem. You need something that's exclusive to this meta that makes it so that this meta is worth doing, right?
Arena infusion.
Yeah, like if there's an Arena infusion, that would be big, right?
You know what? I'll just say it. I'll just say this, okay? Well, first of all, there's something else I wanted to mention. Strike missions. I pug strike missions all day long, or do Dragon's End. I like to do hard content. Regardless, strike missions give shit all. If you don't, like, you do it once a week and you get a green and a chest that might drop like an upgrade for the Jade bot. Maybe that's what you get. You don't get shit from it. And the profit shards that you get, it takes you a year and a half to get enough profit shards to get ascended weapons and armor, and then you still have to pay gold on top of that to get the ascended stuff. It's like, okay, there's no point to do this for rewards. I just like doing the hard content, but I'm definitely in the minority there, where I think you're right. I think most people want stuff to be rewarding, and I think if strike missions or Dragon's Inn could legit probably just give you 20 gold every time. I think that might be
That would be
realistic.
low. Because that wouldn't even be good. That's the worst part. That's kind of what
People
Sneb's
would-
getting at.
People
wouldn't
would
even
think
be
it's
good.
good though. People would think that it's
it doesn't
good
matter.
because
They wouldn't do it still. It would have to be leagues above what you can get elsewhere, because 20 gold at the completion of that is still not good enough. Because remember, I can make
that's not even true at all.
Oh no, it is. Like I can make like 8 to 10 gold by just like AFKing and Verdant Brink on a Herald. 8 to 10 gold an hour. You spend 2 hours and you have to do all this organization, and you have to know like a decent build, and you have like there's a lot of investment that goes into figuring out how to do Dragon's End, and you don't get the reward for that. It's the same with raids and other end game content. There isn't reward that takes into account the amount of work that goes into figuring out your class, your team, your all of the stuff. Whereas you don't have to do any of that. You can stand in one place and give boons and do nothing else and get 8 gold an hour or whatever.
Right, but I don't want to do that because that makes my brain fall out of my ear.
I agree. I don't think it's fun, but the problem is that people are very, very extrinsically reward motivated. And for a lot of players, getting gold and like getting cool skins and stuff is the game. Like they're not motivated by like that, we failed at 1% at Dragon's End, and then we rallied back for the next time, and we got NA first, and we were so excited. People don't care about that. They're like, I want to know how I can get as much gold as possible so that I can look fancy and be cool in this game. And that's it. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that per se. But a lot of people are motivated by that stuff. And so if you want people to engage with the content, you have to make the risk reward worthwhile.
But there's a difference between seeing 20 gold pop on your screen all at once and just passively getting like 20 silver here and there, and then selling it all at the trading post after clicking through your inventory for 30 minutes and cleaning it out. If Dragon's End literally just gave you 20 gold, and I'll even go crazy. I'll actually go crazy. You get 20 gold guaranteed every single time, and there's a chance at an Aurene infusion. And there's a chance.
Then maybe it's worth
there's a chance at a precursor too. It just flat out just drops a fucking precursor.
Yeah, look, if there's a bunch of high rolls and there's guaranteed gold, then suddenly this event is way more alluring. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think we actually agree, right? Like it just can't be the same as something that requires no effort, right? Like I don't think you should get 20 gold for a fail. I think you should get something for a fail.
You should get like a gold for failing it.
Well, they just make it so every 20% of boss HP you get more.
Yeah,
that's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
easy.
Gold, silver, and bronze rewards.
Hey, make it past certain benchmarks, you get rewarded for that. I'm okay with that, right? I think that's actually really good.
30 gold
people to make progression.
30 gold for getting gold, 20 for getting silver, 10 for getting bronze, and like 1 for just beating it with 2 seconds.
They would never do liquid gold though. They would only ever do items.
You're probably right, but imagine
what that is. That means whenever you would beat this meta event, that would be 60 people getting 30 gold. That's a lot of gold.
Nah, it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's actually fine.
I mean, is it?
Give Mystic coins. MCs.
Ooh.
30
MCs? Honestly, that would be pretty crazy.
That would be dope.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. 30 Mystic coins per play.
Quick.
Boom. Huge.
The whole point is that it's not about... I don't even think it's not super relevant exactly the way in which you get the reward or even exactly what it is. I think there are some things that would be obviously way more alluring than other things. Look, if you put a mount skin behind this thing as like a rare drop, people are gonna like lose their minds to try to get this thing, or they'll buy it off the trading post. And people that are really, they're like, oh man, I want to get this drop so I can sell it. Or some people are like, oh, I want to get this drop so I can get the drop. You just put anything behind this that is unique to that, and suddenly you got people doing it. 100%.
I think there's a general issue with the entire reward structure in End of Dragons. I know a lot of it, like ArenaNet has been very outspoken about the fact that they built End of Dragons to be to incentivize replayability. but I don't necessarily think that they've done it in a way that entices players all that much. Much of the replayability that the design seems to be is they are incentivizing you to do like event chains or like series of events or killing multiple monsters to get an extra rid of whatever map. That's essentially the most alluring thing that they have right now implemented. The rest of the content, the strikes, the world bosses, anything doesn't really drop anything good, and even the good stuff is some account bound in a lot of cases. Take the Jade bot upgrade stuff. That's probably the most sought after stuff right now. That is account bound and super RNG. Rest of the game doesn't really reward you with anything. Like, can someone, for the life of me, I'm trying to figure out why all of End of Dragons give you so many unusual coins when unusual coins is the one currency in End of Dragons that is practically useless. You can get a few skins and some recipes, and they're super cheap. And after that, you are just stacking coins. It's the only easy to come by currency that just has no value. And the Imperial Favors, that's just event grind. There's no real way to get it otherwise. It's just grind, and you get extra writs from doing the event chains. It's just kind of like, yeah, it just feels really grindy without really having any like good results from it.
I think Arena's already spoken about this a bit. Like Grouch has said on Reddit that they want to make the metas a bit rewarding, specifically Dragon's End. So I think they're aware of this. I think what they've done is, and I think this makes sense, is that they lowballed it at the start so they can increase it. Because if they say, right, End of Dragons, most rewarding X-Pack ever, Giga Rewards, then they nerf it. It's like, no, it's going to kill the content, right? But now what they can do is they can like slowly step it up over time so they can make sure that it remains, so that people are like, oh my God, they're buffing the rewards, pog, right? So it kind of has the opposite effect of nerfing the rewards, I guess. In that sense. But yeah, for sure. It definitely needs to change, right? Like, there's a good idea in the chat, like dropping one of those antique summoning stones at the end of Dragon's End. So like 1/100th of what you need for a legendary. That would be pretty motivating, I think. That might actually get people a little more excited.
I think if there's a big enough drop at any of the, if they add antique summoning stones to the metas, or even just one of them, I think that might actually take a huge hit to the price of the antique summoning stones.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, if they did it on all the metas, it would tank it. Like just Dragon's End.
It would be the cheapest legendaries you'd ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably going to end up pretty cheap anyway, though, right? Because eventually those things are going to go down.
They're going to be so cheap if they actually end up adding those.
Yeah, so they might not want to do that because I think they probably want the prices of that to stay high, or relatively high, right? Not
relatively.
Yeah. Well, you got a little bit distracted here, but I kind of wanted to talk about like the nature of the open world in general, because one thing that people said is that, I'm playing the open world, so I don't want to care about squads or boons or DPS or mechanics or playing with other people or thinking about that or think about the game mechanics. And that's a fair perspective. I think that's a valid opinion. That's an opinion you can have. But it really got me thinking, like, what is open world in Guild Wars 2? Like, what is its purpose, right? Like, is there a way to actually use the open world for more group-centric play? Because we've got this giant arena, right, where we have 50, 60, 100 players, and we're using that as solo content almost, right? That seems really unusual to me. That's a very weird thing to do. Like, and if players really don't like that, then that's fair, right? I'm not going to say, hey, we're turning all this open world into raids now. Hey, this is our territory now. It's raids. Okay. Oh yeah. I'm not saying that I'm going to force that to be the case, but I think it's a really interesting topic to have. Like, is stuff like Octovine as far as the open world goes? Is that the cap? Is that as far as it goes in terms of kind of group interaction? Or is there space for something that's maybe a little bit more intense, a little bit more team oriented? Because I think that it's not hard to see the irony in group content being completely solo based and the team being irrelevant, right?
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you don't have content like that, then you're gonna have a hard time building community in general. You have to have a reason to want to get together and play together. It's actually like a really interesting argument. I'd love for this to be a big discussion actually, because
Hmm.
if you only go to the LFG for everything and you don't communicate with anyone, you simply just like join just so that there are other people around you, and you don't have to really organize, and you don't have to have somebody saying like, hey, team A go here, team B go here, then you don't really, there's no reason to have a community like a guild and stuff. In my view, like there's not much of a reason for open world to do events. Like why would you need that if everything is easily destroyed by just walking into it with enough people? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's why most of the community don't really engage with the communities, because the game is, you can just do that. You don't have to engage.
Yeah.
I mean,
I almost want to see them do a meta event like this again, except make it a little bit easier or significantly easier. So not like totally free like a lot of events are. Make it a little bit easier. Not have an exclusive kind of on the box reward like the siege turtle on it, and see if people like it. That would be really curious to me. I'd be curious if people would enjoy something like that. Because I feel like people like the MightyTeapot to an extent. People like Triple Trouble. People like Drakkar. These are things moving in that direction a little bit, right? It's really got me, this entire conversation, it's got me thinking about what's the nature of open world. Because I view, whoa, holy shit. Like a boss that requires like 50 players to work together in a giant team to take it down. Like, damn. That's a pretty interesting, unique selling point for Guild Wars 2, don't you think? I feel like a lot of MMOs these days aren't MMOs. They are single-player games that then have instance content at the end of them, like raids or dungeons. They're not massively multiplayer anymore. You don't have that open world experience, which is what I think Guild Wars 2 does extremely well with world versus world. There's honestly not much else there like that. You can go, oh, I'm in a team of 50 players. We're going to smash into the other players, right? And I think, wait, we could have something like that in PvE. I thought, holy shit, that's crazy, right? And look, I'm going to catch the objection now. People say, oh, but you can't do that because you don't have enough control to make sure that you always succeed. And this is a yes and no situation. Obviously, it would require a bit of a cultural shift. But secondly, a lot of open world encounters aren't tuned to be like mega intense. And funny enough, actually, Su1 is a really good example of this. If you crunch the numbers on it, you need like 7k DPS or so per player to beat that boss. Which, that's obviously going to be an ask compared to what people are used to 100%. And I'd say that number's a little bit too high, but I don't think it's unreasonable that you could kind of guarantee that. Like, as long as you have like a good mixture of players and experience levels, people should be okay to get that kind of number across the average of a squad, considering that, the potential number is obviously a lot higher than that. Like if you went really, really hard. So I think encounters can be tuned such that you don't need everyone to be a giga tryhard to do it. It's actually funny enough how a lot of raids in older MMOs are, specifically Classic WoW. Classic WoW raids are tuned under the understanding that like 15 people are going for it and trying to really pump. Then like 25 people are watching Netflix on the other screen, right? Kind of like half paying attention. So I think it's possible to actually organize content and balance it around not everyone being a super tryhard and still have it being pretty interesting. To be honest, like it's just, is that
There's
something
like
we
a
could ever
perfect
see?
middle.
Yeah, I think
There's
there
a
is.
perfect middle that you need to find. And
Yeah.
we need, my point is that we need content like that, because the reason that people stay in a game, obviously it's different for everybody. There's going to be people that they just like the story, they don't play with anybody else, and they just play solo, and that's totally fine. I want to make that very clear. However, I think largely a lot of people stick around in Guild Wars 2 because of communities. I know for myself, one of the big reasons I've stuck around all these years is because I like the people that play the game too. The only way that you meet people and engage with other people is through having to work together, really. Because that's how you just like randomly meet someone, right? Like I've met tons of people just like raiding or just doing stuff like there's an event happening and suddenly like I'm in a fashion show. I don't know. You just meet people like that, right? And if you don't have reasons to group up and reasons to engage with each other, then I feel like you're in a weird spot where there's no reason to communicate ever. This doesn't mean that we need Dragon's End level difficulty all the time. There's just that like perfect middle ground where, you know, it pushes people just enough to where they're like, hey, this would actually be a lot easier and our win rate would increase a lot if we just like organized a bit. And that's where communities are built. And like you have full out guilds dedicated to Triple Trouble, right? Huge communities that have been going for years. They have like meetings after the worm and stuff. And those guilds are incredible. Like it's super cool, right? That's cool. That's community. And they stick around because they've built friendships. And you know, there's like some kind of notoriety now with their guild, and like there's a sense of belonging and purpose. And I feel like without events that are meaningful, without metas that require, well, not even like super require, but that incentivize working together, right? Because you'll beat it much faster and do this and this and this. And without that sort of thing, there's not really a reason to stay and build something, right?
Just to play devil's advocate, I guess.
Do it.
No.
But because I feel like there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want there to be a community like that. Like they don't necessarily want to be a part of a voice comm community trying to do things. I think a lot of players in this game really just kind of want to do their own thing, chat with friends, and log off. They don't necessarily want to engage in that thing. Is that so wrong of them to want
no, not at all.
to not have the
what I'm saying is that there's just a large
activities?
amount of people that really enjoy actually doing something, right? Like there's some people that go and they just want to, and I actually have done this and it's super fun, by the way. Hang out on your skiff, fish, smooth jazz in the background, just talk to your friends on Discord. That's
Dude, honestly,
that's
the skiff and the fishing is so underrated. Like
it's actually really relaxing, right? But then there's lots of other people that go ahead.
No, I was just it's just an anecdote. The other night, I just jumped on some random party skiff, sat there for like an hour and a half chatting with these rando dudes that I've never met before, and we were just chatting about life. Like I hadn't had that experience in Guild Wars 2 for I don't know how long. It was just so chill and casual, and it was all because of fucking fishing. I mean, who would have thought? Yeah.
Fishing
It's
is
like
underrated.
going to a bar, just hanging out and just like bump into somebody,
Yeah.
and you're just like, yeah, bro, like work was shit today, and now I'm just hanging out. And then like maybe you see them again, maybe you don't, but you had this really cool, like unique, special interaction. It's neat.
Deroir raised a really, really fucking good point. And in my opinion, one of the key criticisms of Dragon's End, which is, what if I don't care whatsoever about interacting with other players, right? And I'm not interested in joining a community. I'm not interested in playing with a community. I just want to log on. I want to play my game and then log off from the game. People are saying in the chat, then don't play an MMO. Then why are you playing this game? Guys, look, wake the fuck up. Like 95% of people in Guild Wars 2 already play this way, right? Like this is the thing. The game actively, historically, has catered towards solo play. This is actually one of the defining features of the history of Guild Wars 2. So we can't turn around and say, oh, then don't play an MMO. Then, dude, what the fuck have people been doing all this time, right? Like, this is like a solo single-player MMO, right? That's how it's been for ages. Right? We're now getting, they're maybe trying to move it away a little bit, as Sneb correctly points out. Like, a lot of the metas are kind of go here and here at the same time. Like, come and fight that boss. There's mechanics on the fights. There's a lot of splitting and stuff like that. But it's like, the thing is, what's really important to understand is that the game has gone against its current direction. Yes, we've always played the game in a community-focused way. Everyone here on the stream has, and we enjoyed that. We loved that, right? That's awesome, right? And I'm not saying that any of the experiences that anyone has in a community are invalid. It's the opposite. They're extremely valid. But you have to, we also have to consider the fact that this is essentially an invasion of the territory of open world, right? Ender Dragons has come and it has invaded open world with these community events, right? Like that.
No, it is not even close. Because you can still go play by yourself just fine. It's not even a thing. Like, it's not even an issue. You can go play by yourself. You can fish. You can run around and you can do map completion. You can get the map. You can do all of this. You can do literally all of these things in all of the maps and everything the End of Dragons has done. You can talk to all of the NPCs in the story. You can max out Arborstone. You can play hide and seek. You can do all this shit by
Or
yourself.
can you get the turtle?
Ooh. Tag team
Yeah,
with
I'm
Deroir.
just
Let's
saying,
go.
Ken.
Let's go, Deroir.
No. Hear me out here a little bit. I'm actually having kind of a very interesting internal debate here because on one hand, you have players that, I mean, they should be catered to, right? They're just as valid and their playstyle is just as valid as anybody else's. If that's how they're having fun, this is a recreational activity. And if they're finding joy in playing alone, then that's great, right? I think the real problem here is that is it okay for them to go to a group event and still play alone when everyone else is playing together? And how do you really I guess Teapot, essentially what you're asking is a debate that we've been having for a week now. Should everything just be balanced to solo players? Is really what it starts to become.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Should it everything be balanced to solo players? And I don't think so. I think that there should always be an incentive at some point to grouping up and communicating with each other. I mean, I did Dragon's Den the other night and I had like 15 to 20 maybe people in the group that were just from the map and they wouldn't communicate with me at all. And it made it way harder. Right? And I messaged them privately. I invited them to the squad. I tried to put them in stuff. I did everything and I just couldn't get them to engage at all. So should it be harder for them to complete group events if they don't want to engage? That's the question, right? And on one hand, I feel a great level of empathy and sympathy for them, right? Because they want to be able to just finish this content. But at the same time, when your screen says group event and you're not communicating with the group, it's kind of like showing up for like a rec league of some kind of sport. And you're like, no, I'm actually on my own team. And everybody's looking at you like, but you're on our team.
But oh no, now we're in trouble because this comes back to the
Right.
point that Deroir brought up. Like, honestly, I'm just gonna parrot what Deroir says now. I'm taking credit for this. But this is exactly what exactly the problem. Group
they do kind of exist though, right?
But group event doesn't mean what you're saying in Guild Wars 2. Group event means you need to have more than one player there to do it. It doesn't mean you have to play in a group. Now, you might say that that's wrong. That would be a fair criticism. But in the history of the game, that is not what that means. It doesn't mean you have to work as a team. It means you need to have more than one player there. And the question is,
the problem.
And the question is, like, what do we do here? Should we try to culturally shift the game so that is what it means, or a little bit more? It doesn't have to be like super, super hard, right? Requires a bit more coordination between the players. Or do you need to move that type of coordination away from the open world? And does it only belong in stuff like raids, strike missions, or potentially instance versions of these maps like Dragonstorm?
Yeah. So for me, I was honestly after the chaos of the last week or so, part of me thinks that it's just not possible anymore. Right? It's like actually impossible. We're too far gone. But the other part of me thinks like, it's okay to have like one thing every once in a while be kind of hard, right?
I get that way.
Like,
Ooh.
isn't it okay to have one element of open world be kind of challenging? But then what are the parameters of that? Is it okay that it's challenging, but there's not stuff locked behind it? Is it okay that it's challenging, but that you even get rewarded if you fail? Like what is the conversation around how do you accommodate players with that? I think that's really, because to me, I think sort of redefining open world and saying, hey, this like big bad boss that you fight, it actually is the big bad boss that it claims to be. Like this is something that takes a little bit more effort than the other things that you may have engaged with. think it's okay to have that every once in a while. I don't think every meta should be like that, or it really will damage the players who prefer to play solo. So yeah, I guess the question I would throw back is, do you think it's okay to have something every once in a while be a little bit harder than the average thing, but that there's maybe some kind of accommodation for folks, that maybe you don't lock something super exclusive behind it, that you can't buy off the TP or whatever, right? Like the turtle you couldn't get in any other way other than to complete this meta. So as long as you don't lock stuff like that, is it okay? Is it okay to have stuff that's actually a little bit
As
more
an
difficult?
advocate for all the people, all the casual people. Now I'm using the.
Oh, you didn't like that word, Deroir?
Because I am part of it. I am part of that demographic right now. I just kind of want it all to be very smooth sailing, and I don't really want any friction, so that I can just kind of do my life normally.
All right.
I'm kind of putting this on.
Look, I already said that I think it's all doomed. If it's all doomed, then make every event that has any amount of difficulty instanced, but make it a 50-person raid with a CM. Done. Then everyone's happy. Like, honestly, if you made Dragon's End, you didn't nerf anything. You made it a 50-person raid with good rewards that you complete daily or weekly, and yeah. You just like put a CM in it and made it like super hard in there, but nowhere else. Sure.
And you know what? I'm even going to flat out say that solution is probably the best case solution. But you know the thing that really upsets me about that, Sneb? It's that if that got added to the game, then in a way we would just be completely locked off from the rest of the open world community, right?
Oh yeah, that
makes me
really
sad.
Disappoints me too,
right?
Yeah,
I like the fact that I go on a map and people are like, "Whoa, what are you guys doing here?" Right? Like, "Whoa, what the hell are you guys? Whoa, what the hell is this?" Right? There's all you guys like with the same guild tag going all over the place. I think that's really cool. I like the fact that, yesterday, a really great example, we did Triple Trouble on NA because Isa had never done it before, and in our squad, there are players who'd never done it before. And this is what the stuff that's really, really cool. There was like a level 54 random Mesmer, he's 400 AP, never played the game before, right? Probably within, just played the game for a few days, right? And he was like, whoa, what the hell are you guys doing? Right? And I think that's really cool.
Wholesome.
It's so wholesome. It's so cool, right? To have that type of experience where you have your guild, your community, and it can bring people together, right? It brings the different areas of the game together. Another really good thing was like the Dragon Stand speedrun I did. Like we did an open world map speedrun. There were members of QT there. There were members of people from SC, people who had never raided before even, right? Who were just open world players who kind of came along just to hang out with us, right? And attempt to do this thing together. I think there's something kind of wonderfully social, right, about the open world, and the idea that the only way that we can do this without literally causing everyone to explode in fury is to say, you know what, just never talk to each other, just never interact ever. That's a little depressing to me. I think if you have this open world environment, this provides a platform where players from different areas of the game can interact with each other. If you have players of different types never interact with each other, it's significantly difficult and definitely more daunting and intimidating for players to move into other areas of the game. Because, for example, let's suppose you're an open world player and you're like, man, I want to try and do I want to do this instance open world boss, right? Well, you're going to go in there and look at the LFG, and it's going to say 1,000,000 KP, no everything, no mechanics, right? Like, and because it's just going to get insanely gatekept. And how do I know this? Because it already is. Okay, and it's not even exactly gatekeeping. It's more like players wanting to control their own experience and wanting to play with, essentially players of their own experience level so they can maximize their own efficiency or whatever, or whatever fun they have, right? If you give players the ability to do this even more, or essentially kind of mandate it even more, right, then you're going to end up with even more division and more bigger and wider chasms between different areas of the player base, making it harder for players to get out, well, not necessarily get out of, right, but to try something new. Trying something new is going to be significantly harder.
We experience this with raids. That's the whole reason I built my community, is because people who were new to raids could not play with people that were really experienced because they would demand all of this crap. But if you put them in a place where they can play safely together, then suddenly they can communicate, share ideas, and everybody benefits. Like it's a good thing. When you take people and they can play together, you can learn from each other. That's it.
Exactly. Right. Okay. Like the goal is to try and to allow players, to empower players to engage in whatever content they want as easily as possible, and to reduce friction between different player groups, but also reduce the friction of players moving between or joining different player groups. This is a really big issue in Guild Wars 2. There's a real reason why it's so hard to get into stuff like raids and strikes or whatever. It's very hard to do that, and that's partially because stuff like the open world where players enter the game is so different and so separated from everything else in the game. This is a big problem, and funny enough, I think it's something they tried to actually address a little bit with Ender Dragons by making the open world have more concepts in it that are shared with the rest of the game, right? And this has been like an hour-long discussion on, is it a good idea to try and bridge the gap between these communities, right? Essentially, that's like the underlying concept here, right? Is that, well, when I say good idea, I'm not talking about, is it a philosophically good idea? I mean, is it a practically good idea?
Hard to do. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think we're just going to wrap this up about now as well. Because otherwise,
I can tell you why it's a good idea. I can actually prove definitively. Because when you're just a little peepo running around playing by yourself and you're looking through the gym store and you think, I guess this skin's all right. And then you actually see someone using it with 1 million infusions and all these effects stacked on each other. And you're like, oh, fuck, that's a good skin. I guess I have to buy that. So it makes sense from a business perspective, right? It's only a good thing if you mix people together, because they see skins and they think, fuck, that's cool, and now they buy it. See, easy, problem solved.
Nice.
Let's move on from fucking, literally, I'm so mad right now, I want to rip my monitors off the wall.
I have a great
we should move on.
A great topic of conversation then to keep that steam going.
Oh,
I'm kind of caught in a mental hurricane of I don't know what word to use instead of casuals. I don't like you mentioned it earlier as like being a bad thing, and now I can't get it out of my mind as like I want to be very, very clear. I don't mean the word casual in like a demeaning or derogatory way, but I don't want to offend anyone. So you mentioned that, and now I'm kind of stuck in this like I don't know if I can just use that word.
What I meant by that is that casual can mean so many different things to so many different people. So you have to define what you mean by casual if you use that, right? Like there are people that are super good at the game that only play a few hours a week, right? And would you consider them casual? Or when you say casual, do you mean the players that don't really engage with mechanics very much and that's just not their thing and they engage with the story and do these other events and they're quite happy with that? When you say casual, do you mean solo players who are probably maybe sort of in between mechanical skill level with those players, but they don't really talk or engage in squad chat, right? Like there's so many ways that you can define casual that it's almost unfair to lump them all into one, because if you're talking about skill level or like mechanical skill level or DPS or anything like that, and you say, oh, the casuals, and you're like, do you get this picture of like everyone doing under 5k DPS? Because I don't think that's the reality. I think a lot of casual players are very, very capable and do very well. And yeah, it's just like a hard conversation to have because people get really emotional about that because they're like, oh, you're like insulting me. They feel like it's demeaning.
You strike a really good point of like there being very different subgroups of within that group. I think when I use that word, I very much like I saw Nike's definition of it, which was low commitment players. I think that's very much what I visualize it as, or that's kind of the word that I'm using. That's why I see myself as a casual player. I don't commit myself to that many hours of play every week. But I still know the game. I very much consider myself casual.
I think this is a really hard thing to define because I can give you a counter example to that. And that would be, what about a player who puts in 8 hours a day, but just doesn't care about the mechanics whatsoever.
Exactly,
Like,
right? So
because
do we lump all those into one?
The thing is, it's no
right?
good. The problem is, I think that what we're trying to get at here is an unbelievably. It's almost actually we're trying to be too broad in a way, because when we're talking about casuals, for want of a better word, I think what you and Deroir are trying to get at is someone who is not interested in the mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Think about, look, and if you do think there's something wrong with that, by the way, guys, think about every single game you've ever played and then realize that you don't care about the mechanics in 90% plus of them, if you think that's a bad thing. But that aside, is there a way to define that in a succinct way? I'm not sure.
I mean,
I don't think so.
I guess my point is just I don't want to be offensive by using the word casual, because it's not inherently a bad thing to be a casual at a game. Most players are casual gamers. I mean, it's a pastime. It's for fun.
Yeah, the only reason I had brought it up earlier was because I didn't think that you were trying to be offensive with it. I just think that some people take that to mean something offensive. And so it's like really interesting to me how we explore this dialogue, especially with the last week. I think as we've used the word casual and elite and all these different words, I think that we've essentially had a communication breakdown where people just like can't find any common ground because we all define things differently.
Well, it's because it's used as a pejorative. That's why people don't like it.
Yeah.
The thing is, this is a really, really horrible part of language, is that people don't, and exactly what you said, right? People use language differently. And this means that you can say something, not mean it in a certain way, and it get taken completely differently, which is, funny enough, exactly what happened, right?
And literally what just happened to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this means that it's really, really hard to have a conversation, because the language for this isn't very refined, to be honest. It isn't. I mean, look, honestly, that's an entire other tea time, to be frank. You could talk for hours about, like, how do you actually resolve this? I mean, I'm not even sure if you can, right? Like, the internet is so unbelievably chaotic, right? It's very difficult to deal with it, right? I mean, like, even if you look at the responses to chat, right? I've actually timed a few people out because, I mean, I wanted to say this earlier, but we got distracted talking about some other random bullshit. Guys, if you're going to be an asshole, fuck you, okay? That's it. That's the summary of what I was going to say. But, a lot of people are saying some dumbass shit in this chat and have done and will continue to do so. And people are reacting to what we're saying very, very differently. And it's not because even they necessarily disagree. It's because they're interpreting what we say very differently to other people. And part of that is because that they'll have a different preconceived notion of what the language we're using actually means. So when they parse that, it contextually means incredibly different. It means a totally different thing, right? Which is insanely difficult when you're dealing with different sections of the community that are very, very hard. It's something that I pointed out in the video that I released recently. It's just that the problem with the Guild Wars 2 community is that we are fucking terrible at talking to each other. We're incredibly bad at communicating with different segments of the community, which makes it really hard to build bridges, because people aren't going in there with the same language, right? And it's almost like, I almost feel like I have to write a glossary of terms at the start of my video so I can say how I'm semantically defining something before I say it. Unironically, that might not be a bad idea, by the way. I'm serious.
I think it would be, actually a good thing to do. A little bit try hard, I guess, but yeah. We all come from different places. We all have different experiences and opinions on the matters, and
I think this is a pretty good time to kind of wrap things up. I think we covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, 4 hour podcast. Does anyone have any funny final thoughts?
Oh, no, that was great.
Can anyone follow that?
What a joke.
I think we should just be nice to each other. That's what I've learned this week, that people should just be kinder to each other.
I disagree.
You disagree? I think that's a really great thing to end on. Let us all be kind. And I think, I mean that unironically too, guys. I think that if we've learned anything, is that we should try and be more understanding of the other side, and we should try and communicate better to resolve these issues that may arise from development changes made, not only by ArenaNet, but also, other stuff that happens in the community too. Because over time, right? People have not exactly been fully charitable to ArenaNet. Definitely some toxicity been there towards that company, and I think that if we can have a better understanding of each other as human beings, it will be better for everyone overall. There it is. Nice.
Let me actually this is actually based, okay?
Okay.
Let me throw this out.
Yep.
If people hate you and people call you horrible names and people are poisonous towards you and you like to the point where like it bothers you as a person, like just it's fine. Like as long as you think like if you're trying to help people and you're trying to do the right thing and you're trying to improve the experience of others and there are people hating you for it, it's like just fuck it. Who cares? People are gonna do it.
Nice.
Like if you throw yourself out there and you try to make things better, someone's gonna get mad at you. And just fuck it. Just keep doing just keep fighting the good fight, like 3 Dog and fucking Fallout 3. Like just do it.
Okay. Easy peasy. I'll tell you what, let's wrap things up. Hello everyone. Okay, we also make content. By the way, including this TeaTime. Streaming, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. It's good. Deroir, you're back. Are you going to do anything else, or are you vanishing into the ether again? In the mists?
I'm gonna vanish into the ether again. I'll see you in the mists. No, I'll be around. I'm always kind of around. Follow me on Twitter. I think that's the best. If I do something, you'll know there.
There it is. Boom. Hosts. So Sneb, is there anything you'd like to say before you get cancelled?
Yeah,
for good.
I make so my community, the Skaden Gang, we help people get into end game content like strikes and raids. We teach people, we have mentors, and we effectively just try to help people improve at the mechanics of the game in a safe environment where they can just ask questions and make mistakes. And you know that like magic school bus quote where it's like make mistakes, get messy, and I don't know what the thing after that is. It's like go out and have fun or something. But like, yeah, we just like make an environment where people can actually do raids, and lots of people on NA can't do that. So if you're on NA and you want to get into raids, I'd be happy to help. Follow me on Twitter and stuff at Snebzor and on Twitch.
Boom, there it is. And of course, it's Brazil. The final thing.
Hey. Wow.
Steering the ship towards oblivion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've just been the tyrant of the Guild Wars 2 community. Whenever people are, saying things, I just have to fly in and just shit all over them and just ruin their day. That's me. I have to be here. I have to be the great opposite reaction, and I just have to piss everybody off. That's me. That's Brazil DNT. But yeah, actually, I do have some new content coming. It's been a little while since the Big Nose Ted guide, but there's this top secret project that's being worked on right now that aims to make Guild Wars 2 more accessible. And I found something recently that an individual approached me, and they were talking about literally like not being able to raid and do Veil Guardian because they're colorblind and they can't see the mechanics. And so me and some other people did a little bit of digging, and like Guild Wars 2 doesn't have a colorblind mode. I fucking found this thing. I reached out to one of the big screenshotters, Willow. Willow's like, oh, there's this reshade thing that has different colorblind options. You should do this. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. This will make things great for people that are colorblind. And with the accessibility debate, I guess we're going to see if that's a thing. I'm going to make a video on that, just kind of showing off how it works and how to set it up. So hopefully that can improve people's experiences, because I would like to be able to do that. So you can subscribe to me on YouTube. It should be youtube.com/UWVPreston. I don't think there's an underscore, but I should have that coming out soon. But otherwise, I'm a photographer. I take pictures. If you want to stalk me in real life, I have a few of those people that really just seem to love me and like everything that I do. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, UWV Preston. You can see all my photography. I'm unironically the best photographer in the world. You can go to underworldvideo.com. You can see all my photography. You can buy all my art. Ansel Adams, like, fuck off. Get out of the way. I'm better than you. So, Other than that, yeah, give Teapot all your money, buy a VPN, subscribe with Twitch Prime.
Yep.
I want to see Isa in the chat right now gifting 50 subs. I want to see everyone, literally everyone. MMO Inks, you've bought 100k gems. You better fucking give 50 subs right now. Do it, everybody.
Call
everybody,
out.
do it.
Oh.
Wow, it's a big call out there.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, and Kroof, let's do a Raw sometime. Hit me up.
Ooh. I mean, I can't really follow that, so I'm not even going to try. Yeah, of course, guys, thank you so much for watching this tea time. I'll still be going for a little bit later this evening, doing some content. I don't know, reacting to stuff. Who knows? I mean, honestly, my mind has been obliterated and expanded by this podcast, so there's not much else I can really do. But, of course, you know, follow the stream, subscribe to the stream, follow me on Twitter, follow everyone here on Twitter, actually, guys, because we love tweets, right? It's a very, very good way to get your information across, guys. 140 characters, plenty of room for nuance, right? Oh, yeah, it's amazing. So definitely be sure to get over there. Okay, subscribe everywhere. Okay, watch all the other tea times.
Coming through. Oh,
and he
baby.
actually did it
Here we
with
go.
5 gifted subs. What a gamer! But anyway, thank you so much for watching. You know, I'll be back in just a moment here. Have a wonderful evening, of course, and we'll see you all next time on not only our respective social media, video outlet channels, but I'm sure in the comment section as well. So let us know what you think of the show. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
In the
Bye.
mists.